Alrighty, folks, welcome on in. It is your host, Mike from PA, and we are live. I don't know why my room looks so dark. Hello? Just configure this a little bit. Let me just boost the light. It's a little dark in here. Okay, it's a little better. Welcome on in, ladies and gentlemen. We are live. It is Tuesday, December 30th. With your host, Michael from Pennsylvania, here in. And our current sub count is 6,680, not 6,668. Or, excuse me, 67. 67. I didn't want to misspeak. Sorry about that. We are lovely. Aren't you Mike from LA now? Well, the only people who need to know that are people who actually watch me. You know what I mean? That's what's funny, is people will make all sorts of comments about me and they will know literally nothing about my life, and it's like, how the fuck do you have this whole like fan art about a creator that you've never ever watched? It's actually kind of fun. So that's why, as a streamer, I don't think streamers should really post anything on their Twitter about their streams. Make people watch your stream to know the lore. It's really funny that way. You talk about yourself a lot. Well, I mean, it is my stream. It's kind of natural, right? When you're the only one talking, you're going to come up from time to time. When you talk out loud in front of thousands of people every day for 250 days a year for 5 hours each time, at least, you're probably going to come up from time to time. Also, people talk about you so they don't talk about what you're saying, especially in politics. You'll find that people don't like to actually discuss what you're talking about. They would rather talk about you. It's something you notice. Atrioc responded to your criticism of his video. Yes! Yes! I can't wait to see it. Send me over the giggles. Send me over the giggles. Have you ever thought about going by your real name? That's actually not the worst idea I've ever heard. How much did Rivals pay? Are you allowed to say? I don't think so. Mike's, what are your thoughts on TRT? It's gender affirming care. Oh, I can't wait. Can't wait. He gets to ally with Destiny.
I'm going to start this video with an object permanence test. Just, I got to make sure. You guys see me here, right? I'm here. Am I gone to you? Am I back?
There's the giggle.
I need to know that you can pass that before we can move on. Because I'm kind of blown away here. I feel like I'm a little shocked.
Oh, it's Reddit comments from his own fans? Okay, good.
By this discourse. And now you got me saying, I got to do discourse on my first day back. I just had a really, really nice vacation with my family. I played board games and read books pretty much every day. And now I got to come back and do discourse. Okay, look, here's the deal. Let me give you the context. We're talking about context a lot today. 2 days ago, I make a video about essentially government fraud in general and my thoughts on it. And I use this Nick Shirley video and the Somali minister situation as the kickoff for that. I use it as the in. And I got 6 ass threads on my Reddit who I swear to God did not watch this video. Because when I fucking read it, I don't understand. Were they watching the same video that I made? My mind is blown. And so I'm reminded of this thread I saw on Our Teachers. Listen, the kids can read every word that I'm putting in front of them, but if you ask them to say what it means, like what was the paragraph you just read? What was the takeaway from it? They can't do it.
The giggling. Okay. Atrioc defends his support of far right video. I can't wait. This will be fun. Okay, so Atrioc comes back, and the first thing he does is he starts giggling, but he's really mad. He's mad, guys, but he's a giggler whenever he gets mad. Whenever he gets mad or uncomfortable, he does a giggle. Bro, you need to stop that. You're in politics now, man. This isn't, you aren't making videos about your favorite cozy game or whatever the fuck you used to do. You're talking about politics. Can you cut out the giggling while you're watching videos that are being used to stir up anti-Somali hatred in this country under Donald Trump? Can you stop the giggling? Can you maybe get serious for a second? I mean, you said the video was really great, so that's what people saw.
Just their mind blanks out. So I want to do 2 concepts of media literacy. I just want to break these down. The first one is context. Context is what happens before and after. The things around.
So, okay, his reaction to being criticized for falling for a right-wing video and falling for the Trump spin is to go off on this kind of like arrogant rant where he is talking about context and like he's speaking to children. Bro, your politics are uneducated. What do you want me to say? You're not smarter than your audience.
a word or phrase or section or visual to give it meaning, to inform it. Okay, the context matters. If I tell you nice shirt on its own, that might mean, oh, I really like your shirt. But if I say, fuck you, nice shirt, idiot, well, that's important context. The before and after really informs that particular phrase, and it helps you find takeaways. What is the overall takeaway of a piece? For example, if you just saw the clip of Walter White saying, I am the danger in this stupid hat.
Oh, it's atrioc, not otrioc. I don't know why I keep misspelling atrioc. Something in my body does not want to spell it correctly. Something in my body doesn't want me to spell it correctly.
You might think, oh, the point of Breaking Bad is that cooking meth is cool and Walter White is great.
Who watches this slop? Who watches this slop? Does he ever get to the point where he reads the comment and then shows the part of the video where it's not true? Does that happen? Because this is really bad.
That might be your takeaway. But if you watch the whole piece, you might realize that, oh, okay, the overall takeaway here is that Walter White is a monster, and this is a dangerous, terrible path to go down that's left him alone and broken. I want to go through, this maybe seem a little pedantic, but I want to go through like point by point what I'm trying to hit in this video from 2 days ago. And we're going to take a look at the context and the takeaway, because that's what I would like to be judged on. All right. So this particular section, this is the one that a lot of people were crashing out on, which, surprise, surprise, is in the first like 30 seconds. Surprise. And I show this clip from Nick Shirley. And the reason I show this is not because I am platforming Nick Shirley. It is because this video has been pushed by Elon Musk to 121 million people. That is like 40% of the entire Twitter user base.
Okay, chat. That's not what that means. And as a content creator, he knows that's not what it means. As he know, like, impressions are not people. That's just bullshit. He's actually lying now, and he knows that. It doesn't mean it was watched by 121 million. It just means that it's an impression, which is a very loose term. So he's saying, oh, I've got to talk about this video that everybody's seen, which is everyone hasn't seen. 500,000 likes is a lot of likes. That's a very viral video, extremely viral video, or extremely liked video. Now, you also have to remember how many of those likes are authentic likes. Twitter has now become a botted cesspool. I'm saying all of this because right when content gets botted, right when content gets promoted. So let's calm down about this. So even if the video was super popular, which, by the way, we now know how Atrioc thinks. The first thing he does is he says, look how many impressions this has. Look how many impressions this has. So of course I made a video about it. Like, okay. Seems like the priority for Atrioc is, how do I get clout? Clout is number one.
It's on TV news. It is everywhere. This is a massive video. I'm not platforming shit. I'm responding to this exogenous event as a way to bring a different narrative than what is being pushed with it. That is the point. So let's start with the before and after. Now, this is the beginning of the video. So for before, let's look at the context of my fucking channel. I got people in the comments being like, wow, are you pivoting MAGA? Are you just buying what Elon Musk says wholesale? Bro,
okay, so his argument is the context of my reaction to the video is that I don't like Elon Musk. I mean, that's not really what the videos say. Like, if you look at the videos there, this is embarrassing. They actually gave it to him. This is absurd. The world's first trillionaire. Tesla earnings were very funny. It's gonna be like, they're not actually negative videos about Musk. If anything, they're kind of centrist and kind of maybe inside the video there's a lot of really harsh criticisms of Elon Musk, but not in the thumbnails and certainly not in the titles. So if anything, you're kind of showing how you are a fence sitter. At least people have to click before they can see the criticism, because these are pretty fence sittery, generic. Like, it seems to me like it's trying to attract Elon fanboys, if anything. And Grok doing stuff embarrassing, like, that's not necessarily a anti-Elon thing, right? Like, Grok being an embarrassing sycophant and saying how Elon is the best. At the end of the day, even an Elon fan could laugh at that. That's not really that anti-Elon. And the world's first trillionaire with a nice video, a nice picture you chose of Elon in a tux. That's very nice of you. He's always seems to be in tuxedos in your clips. It's not him being a fat slob at the beach. It's not him being not an embarrassing photo, not something where he's yelling or he looks mad. You have him in tuxedos and suits or a nice Tesla zip. Very nice of you to pick such flattering photos of Elon Musk.
Not like I'm caught in his industry out of questioning what Elon Musk says. You think I take Elon Musk at face value? It's frustrating, bro. It's frustrating, okay? I have a whole video where I go into my detailed thoughts on ICE and how this administration is being...
Can you guys link me that? I can't wait to see this fucking genius's opinions on ICE. That ought to be funny.
Brutal with immigrants, okay? And how it's demonizing and causing fear and hatred in the communities. Do you understand? Like, this...
Also, I want to say that this shows how Atrioc's understanding of the immigration situation is actually just set by social media, and he doesn't actually understand what's really going on with ICE. And the answer is because, why am I saying that? Because ICE, believe it or not, is not the most extreme anti-immigrant agency right now. It's actually the Border Patrol. The Border Patrol has been taken over by an extreme far-right Trump supporter, and they're actually doing the most radical shit. It's being done by Customs and Border Patrol agents. ICE is doing horrible shit. Don't get me wrong. I'm not defending ICE. But the most extreme rule-violating, law-violating, Constitution-violating shit is being done by the Border Patrol. And I'll give you an example. You guys remember the Chicago... where they attacked that Chicago apartment building? It was led by a Border Patrol official. So he's talking about ICE, but it shows how shallow his understanding of these situations actually is, which is ICE is empowered. It's actually Customs and Border Patrol being led by the most far-right guy who's doing the extremely illegal shit. The Border Patrol commander leading an immigration crackdown in Chicago applauded his agents' aggressive tactics that prompted resident backlash and lawsuits. From his use of chemical agents to helicopter raid on an apartment building, Gregory Bovino defended the approach to U.S. Customs and Border Protection as appropriate and necessary for what he says are threats his agents have faced at the nation's third largest city. So, like, Bovino is visible around Chicago, where the sight of border agents away from international borders has startled residents. Again, why do I know this, chat? How do I know this? I'm gonna let Atrioc in a little tip. I'm gonna let you in on a little tip, Atrioc. I read, and I'm not reading board game manuals. I'm reading actual journalism. Okay, and I need you to get better. And the problem is that you've already dedicated yourself to an ideological camp before you read the books. Now, this is the disadvantage that you have towards me and Hassan. Hassan and I have our politics not because we picked our politics first, because that's where there was a gap in the algorithm. That's you. I picked my politics after being you and then studying policy and then realizing, oh shit, centrism has failed. Neoliberalism is incorrect. We need radical change. And by studying socialist movements, communist movements, social democratic movements, even social liberal movements, I came to a synthesis that is my politics. Your politics was, I want to get into this politics grift, and there is a market opportunity in the center, and now you're pushing this shit, I guess because you understand that there's a lot of money to be made from the choruses, from the Democratic Party campaign officials. And you do not come to politics with a truth-seeking mentality, which to me is morally depraved. I think if you look at politics from the perspective of how do I make money in this, honestly, I don't think you should be allowed to talk. I want people that have their opinions because of authentic thought and rationale and reason, not people that are paid to be shills.
Context matters because it shows that I am trying to.
How do you know he doesn't? Let me see, chat. Where is this? Where is his I'm gonna start doing politics announcement video? God, what was it called? Oh, I want to check out his Atrioc predictions for 2025. I can't wait to review Atrioc's predictions in 2025. Then we can compare them to, oh, here it is. Two sides of the same coin. You fucking Atriocs. You look at this guy. Hassan and Asmongold are two sides of the same coin? Really?
I have to say this. I tried to watch two other streamers' coverage of this morning. I watched Asmongold and I watched Hassan at the same time. They both watched the same 4 videos. They would pause it almost the same times, and they would both say exactly opposite. I'm not kidding. Asmongold.
By the way, this is called the fallacy of the golden mean. This is called the fallacy of the golden mean. Just because I say the sky is blue and you say the sky is fucking pink and it's noon on a clear day, one of us, it doesn't mean that the color of the sky is 50% between the two of us. And yes, pausing in similar places in videos makes sense because oftentimes people make arguments and then they come to the end of an argument and then you can pause there and respond to the argument. What are you going to do? Just start randomly pausing so Atrioc doesn't say you're pausing at the same time? This is a non-argument. You know what would make this argument valuable? Actually showing some clips of those two people and responding to them. But this is just propaganda. He's doing propaganda. He's doing slop. I don't know if you're dumb, but nothing he's saying here can actually be reacted to other than in the way I just did, which is, what the fuck are you even talking about?
Pauses the video and goes like, this is why Trump planned for this. It's for the Trump golden age. Hassan was pausing and being like, this is why white supremacy and US nationalism doesn't work. I was crazy, dude. I have to say this. I tried to watch two other streamers' coverage of this morning. I watched Asmongold.
I don't know. What was he watching coverage up? Bro is far center, but there's not even any detail. I'm going to be a centrist in this great war. Yeah, ugh. The amount of enlightened centrism. Yeah, that's what that's his market opportunity, guys. His market opportunity.
Hassan was pausing and being like, this is why white supremacy and US nationalism doesn't work.
So is US nationalism and white supremacy correct? Like, listen to this idiot.
The video and goes like, this is why Trump planned for this. It's for the Trump golden age. Hassan was pausing and being like, this is why white supremacy and US nationalism doesn't work. I was crazy, dude. I have to say this. I tried to watch.
So should the middle ground should be Trump's gonna do a decent job? Like, what are you talking about? Like, the funny thing about people like Atrioc is he didn't make a point. And he got 600,000 views on this video. I might actually go insane. Why do you people click on this shit? Aren't you embarrassed? Don't you feel stupid? Like listening to this guy with his dumb Enron hat?
Bring a deeper understanding to what I'm saying. I'm not trying to be a gotcha on either side. I'm trying to understand and learn and know where people are coming from to give them a better takeaway. And by the way, when I got the screenshot of me holding up the flag from the ICE video, that one of the top comments was this: I think he's trying to reach his audience that is more likely to be influenced by the misinformation. You got to package things right to get people who actually need to hear it. I think this is a very powerful thumbnail. I mean,
0 likes.
Powerful comment. I really appreciate what this guy said. It reminds me of a similar video I made where around the H-1B stuff, this guy made a fucking Twitter video that went super viral. This also went viral. And I watched
Sam Hyde? So we've got Nazi video after Nazi video. I don't think this is going very well for you, Atrioc. Sam Hyde, the pedophile rapist Nazi? Is this the guy who was watching deepfake porn of his fellow content creators? Yes, he's trying to become the new centrist. He's trying to become the new centrist political creator. And he watched a far-right video about the Somalis fraud. And by the way, it was just completely useless. It had no journalism and was just basically changing what was a investigatory success between Minnesota state government and the federal government under Obama catching this fraud and prosecuting it. He turned it into a racist thing. And he said how great the video was.
Watch this video. And I said, look, some parts of this video are funny. I can see why this would be appealing to someone, but it's like a cup of poison. Okay? They give you a little bit of a taste of the good stuff and then you fall into the cup of poison. It's like that was my whole metaphor about how, you know, a few things that you agree with in something like this might be a way to put a much worse narrative on it. So this is a context that's important going in. This context is what allows me to make a thumbnail like the economy is saved with Donald Trump. Do you think that I literally mean the economy is saved? Or do you think perhaps there's a deeper...
I think honestly, what Atrioc is doing is he's hooking into the right-wing algorithm by making videos that a right-winger would look at and say, this is right-wing. And then at the end, he's going to say, vote for Gavin Newsom. And all the right-wingers are going to flip over to voting for Gavin Newsom.
takeaway here. So in this video, when I open by saying, hey, look, there's parts I don't like, but there's some good journalism there, I am damning with faint praise, okay?
There's no journalism in there, buddy. There's no journalism in there. The fact that you think there was journalism means you're incompetent. Also, this is just, bro, you can't be fucking serious right now. How many subscribers does he have? Jesus Christ. Holy fucking hell. Oh my God, dude. What's the video? Big A? Why can't I find it? Why is it not popping up? Why is this unsearchable on Social Blade? Okay, somebody will find it for me.
I follow it immediately by calling the younger guy in the video a clout-obsessed Zoomer. I am merely saying...
That's you! Or you might be a clout-obsessed millennial, but what do you mean? That's not a fucking insult! Wow, he did really great journalism, but he's a clout-obsessed Zoomer. That's not an insult to your audience.
That the fact they got all of the records of all of the spending by all these different organizations and the addresses and found that many of them were listed on the same address is worth
They were already prosecuted and convicted for this. It's not like they found it. They just looked at evidence for which people were already prosecuted and brought it up and then tried to pretend like they were doing the journalism when they weren't. They already had that evidence. It's taking evidence that was presented by government investigators and prosecutors, and then pretending like it's your uncovering of some secret corruption. This is dire. This is dire. This is fucking dire. This is actually dire. People falling into this rabbit hole of stupidity is insane. That scares me.
Opening to, okay? Because we're getting 100 million people watching this video, many of whom are super angry at it. They're riled up. And I don't want to open by saying, dismissing it. I don't want to be dismissive. I don't want to throw it away. I want to say, listen, there's some stuff here worth talking about. Let's get into it.
Except you didn't correct the mistakes. You actually just promoted it. See, and again, Atrioc always reveals his true intent, which is, I want to make as much money as possible by becoming as big as possible. And there's literally nothing else to it. He has no ideology, really. This is what every centrist is like. They want to make money, and they're going to abuse the algorithm to do it. And they hate Hassan because Hassan doesn't think like them. That's literally Destiny. That's Atrioc. That's every centrist scumbag. And I call them a scumbag, and I can call them a scumbag because he could have come on here and said, you know, mea culpa, those guys were kind of right-wingers. I didn't realize that they didn't do any journalism. I looked into it more. It turns out all the things they presented were already being prosecuted by government officials. These guys just made a video to spread anti-Somali hate, and I fell for it, and I'm sorry. He can't do that. He's got to do this pretend where, like, guys, I don't want to alienate the fans of the video.
Open with a hand out to let people come in and see the narrative that I am trying to build over the next 20 minutes. That's what I'm trying to do. I think it is more effective. I think it's how you change people's minds. We've talked about the before. Okay, that's the before of this one comment that is like 6 fucking Reddit threads. I have a 20-minute video. All right, now let's go to the after. So after this, again, I never mentioned fucking Nick.
Can I just, this is apropos of nothing, but do you understand how fucked up it is to make AI porn of someone against their will? Like, do you understand how fucked up that is? You're taking somebody's likeness and you're uploading it to these fucking large language models, and then you're generating porn of them. You understand how fucked up that is? How depraved that is? Like, it's one thing inside your head to fantasize about somebody, but Jesus, to like take their image and like, it's no, can you imagine, like, it's like taking a picture of your friend and having an artist commission porn of them. You understand how fucked up that would be, right? Like, think about that. That's fucking weird. And it shows that you see people as objects, as instrumentalities, as opposed to human beings, right? Because you wouldn't like it being done to you, right? Like, everybody understands that that's an invasion. Everyone understands that that's inappropriate to do without consent.
Surely after this 2-minute mark at the beginning, then I go into how the system of us focusing on just the goal and the bill signing allows opportunities for broader fraud in general to be ripe. Then I go into what actually happened with real journalistic sources in this Somali Minnesota situation. I go through point by point on where the fraud originated during COVID with the lax enforcement, how it built up, the different areas it went into. Okay. Then I pull an actual Somali American former fraud investigator to talk about why, in this particular instance, it might have taken root in the Somali community. Then, then I go on to say specifically, and I really want to say specifically here, but the problem I have with this story is that it's bringing all these people out of the woodwork that only want to talk about this type of fraud when it's Tim Walz and Somalis. I can just tell. I can see the difference in how they act. Oh, interesting. Okay, so then I break down that
guys, he has 5 seconds where he kind of implies that these people might have biased motives.
This narrative around the fraud is being hijacked to turn into like an anti-Somali, anti-Tim Walz thing, and not a bigger story about the widespread pandemic COVID era fraud across the country. So many of these government services, especially around COVID and pandemic, have become ripe for fraud. And then I even go bigger and I start talking about national defense, and I talk about Medicare and the overcharging and legalized fraud in those areas where private contractors are dramatically overcharging the government for huge amounts of money. Oh, by the way, in the middle, sorry, I cut this part out. We also talk about how there's pandemic fraud of all races in all 50 states. People in Florida, pastor in Maryland, guy in California, guy in Arizona. This fraud is much more widespread than the Somali community in Tim Walz's state. It's all over because the opportunities were so ripe, as I mentioned in this section. And then at 13:55, my face looks like I'm on a suit. It's like it looks like I'm a tiny guy. I had to include that because that
went more than 15 seconds without a giggle. So now here we are, we're giggling again.
That's one of the big comments too. Also, I will say the shirt I'm wearing does look like it's from the 70s. My mom bought it for me for Christmas. Okay, the facts. And then I close out by saying that Elon Musk, particularly, who is pushing this narrative down people's throats, had an opportunity to do something about fraud. And in fact, is trying to run the Doge scheme again somehow. Elon Musk is on Twitter like today being like, oh, the fraud is 20% of the federal budget. Bro, you were given the keys to fucking everything and open carte blanche, and you cut basically nothing except for like opposing Democrat stuff and some federal workers, and the deficit increased. That's the last part of the video. So what do you think that if you put all this together, what is the takeaway? It's so frustrating to see someone harp on one line in the first 30 seconds that I'm using as an intro to this viral video that has a lot of interest to get them into my, I think, more rational, well thought out take on the situation. God.
Actually, one of the things that's really, the reason why I'm so anti-Atrioc is he didn't have a rational take. The problem with people like Atrioc is he doesn't have a rational take. Because this whole entire pandemic fraud, all of the frauds that we're talking about, all the contractor abuse, that's what you think we should do with the government. You're a free market guy. You think the government should spend money in the market with private contractors and do these kind of grants. That's what you think we should do. I'm the socialist. I'm the person who wants to decommodify. I'm the one who wants to set up government services directly provided by government employees. See, you want to privatize the entire fucking government and turn it into a slush fund. And then it gets abused like this. This is the direct result of people like you writing the pandemic programs. They get abused by fraud because private companies are fraudulent in much of their activity with the government. That's why China is able to build 50,000 kilometers of high-speed rail, and we can't finish one from San Francisco to LA in the same amount of time. 50,000 kilometers of high-speed rail could crisscross this country 10 fucking times. Why don't we have that? The answer is because Gavin Newsom, you're a big fan of Gavin Newsom as well. He was in charge of California for the last 8 fucking years. And what did he do with that? Squandered $20 billion and got nothing done because they do public-private partnerships. Gavin Newsom's California is the result of your kind of politics, and it's a fucking disaster. And here you are promoting him for president because and the reason why, chat, is because Gavin Newsom had some viral tweets making fun of Donald Trump. And so Atrioc, just like he jumped on this video because it went viral, that's the only thing he cares about. His politics are, I need to talk about the greatest, newest viral clip right now, and then post a video pandering to the people that liked it. That's his fucking MO. What's the most viral video? Pander to the viewers of that immediately, and then sit there going, but then I kind of said, I said for 5 seconds, giggle, giggle, giggle. That's his whole fucking MO. You cannot allow this kind of shit in your media diet. I'm sorry. This guy has absolutely no value whatsoever. None. And I'm sorry to be so harsh. We are about to be into a struggle for the soul of our country, and Atrioc is on the side of evil. If you are on the side of Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, Gavin Newsom, Nancy Pelosi, you're on the side of Trump. And there's really no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I was taught not to bring up a complaint unless I had a suggestion to fix it, which was terrible for a child, but for adults, I think we need to implement it. Please watch my Hope Corps video of you that I linked a bunch before. Just make sure you're not doing it in the middle of me talking. Thank you.
Damn, dude. It's like you have to be spoon-fed a fucking Vine boom. Fuck, this guy is racist. Fuck, this guy is racist. And we shut off. I'm trying to build something. Like, it's very frustrating to see a comment like this. You are falling for a racist framing of this problem instead of a framing more based on reality. It isn't a problem inside the Somali community. It's a problem with the complete lack of government oversight over the country. That is what the video was about. I just know for a fact this guy watched like 30 seconds and wrote this comment. And it's like the whole video is about how it's not a problem just inside the Somali community. It's a problem. I feel like this guy took a summary of my video and then posted it back to me.
It's so funny that he says that the video was good journalism, and then people go that you fell for a fascist propaganda video that you're promoting. By the way, that's how videos get boosted. If you want to understand that, he's trying to claim like, oh no, guys, I really said it's not just Somalis. It kind of seems like this might be racist. But what you're doing is you're boosting the reach of the video and you're not ripping it apart, which is what anybody who was really left of center would do.
It's frustrating, bro. Dude, even the fucking racists who were crashing out at me because I was too nice to Somalis in the video, at least they watched it because they had to have watched it all the way through because they were mad at me for sugarcoating the Somali problem and using actual quotes that I said. It's not about race. They were leaving a big wall up or big wall out and people stole it. And then I respond to both these. I'm like, dude, if you think it's not about race, then why is people in all 50 states of all races stealing 15x more from the PP program than just this? Why is it's such a bigger problem than that? I do these live, right? I don't have any script. I put the slides together and I do it. In fact, that one for the Somali one, I had to do 3 takes and my laptop died in the middle of it. And I stand by the takeaway of what I'm saying. I do. If you had a problem with individual language, maybe use the context to figure it out. If I felt egregious about it, I'd say something, but I really don't. I feel like that was a perfect way. The person I had in mind when I made that video was someone like my cousin. My cousin is someone who would watch that video and is very susceptible to it. And I would like to talk to my cousin and be like, hey, listen, I get what you're feeling. I'm mad about this fraud too. I see the video too.
Just a reminder, he called the duo beautiful, called the old guy a local investigator, the guy who said Somali people are extremely violent. How does he not realize he fell for it? Because, ladies and gentlemen, he said that they might be kind of being racist. Did he even say the word racist? I have to go back and look at the clip again.
Let's talk about it and let's expand.
See, basically what's happening is he got caught doing what he's doing, which is I'm going to just respond to every viral video, pandering slop, and try to build up people as parasocial fans of me. And I'm going to have a political channel that has no substance whatsoever. And then once I get big enough, I'll have big politicians, because they'll see that they'll see that I'm a sellout, and they'll come on my channel because they'll know that he's not going to ask any questions of them that might make them uncomfortable, but he has a platform. So he'll be used by the centrist scum and the corporatists to spread their message, and he'll take a percentage of that as money. That's the plan. And if you don't understand that that's the plan, then I don't know what else to say. And I know that other people like Hassan like to be really charitable, but I don't give a fuck. I'm not going to be very charitable. This guy doesn't believe in a goddamn thing. In fact, Atrioc, I urge you to make a video what I believe about the big issues of the day. I mean, we've been talking about Medicare for all for 10 fucking years as a national political issue. What's your position on Medicare for all? We've been talking about the Israeli-Palestine Gaza genocide for over 2 years. What's your take on the Gaza genocide? Is it a genocide? What should we do to Israel? Do you support BDS, boycott, divest, and sanction movement? And do you support the protesters in the encampments? What's your position on trans rights? Do you think that trans rights are human rights? Do you think that trans women are women? Do you think that trans women should have, trans people should have gender affirming care paid for by Medicare for all? What's your position on immigration? Do you support Joe Biden's expansion of ICE? Do you support Joe Biden abusing Title 42 to keep the border closed during the pandemic while he was removing pandemic protections all around the country? What's your position on the major issues of the day? Do you think free buses is a good idea? Do you think, what is your housing model that you'd like to see pursued? What's the regulations you want to see on Wall Street? Let's get some substance, Atrioc. I don't see any. What's your position on America and China? Should America isolate China and fight a new Cold War? Should China invade? Should the United States invade Venezuela? Should the United States be bombing Iran? Should the United States be interfering with Latin American democracy? Should the United States of America, like, I want to hear some fucking positions, man. Stop giggling. Let's hear some fucking ideas.
That's what I'm trying to get in the door so that we can have a real discussion. And if I do that in any other way that you deem approved, you crash out about it. It's frustrating. And I know
we're going to crash out at you supporting right-wing propaganda. Crash out, by the way, is criticize. Criticize you for saying that this obvious right-wing propaganda to spread anti-Somali sentiment, targeting them as an immigrant population, 80% of whom are U.S. citizens. And they're using this. This is right out of, and in case you're wondering why this is important to call Atrioc, if you're an Atrioc fan and you stumbled in here, you first of all, get a new fucking content creator. He's watch Democracy Now. If you don't like me or Hassan, watch Democracy Now. Watch The Majority Report. Get the fuck away from Atrioc. This guy has no value at all. None. All right, what was I just saying? Fuck. I got thrown. Oh, yeah, we were criticizing you for falling for the racist propaganda. The reason why we were criticizing you, Atrioc, is because that we understand history. Okay? We understand history, Atrioc. And there was a video. I want you to understand what the video, the video is in the tradition of Der Stürmer, which was the Nazi private, by the way, it wasn't the official Nazi newspaper. It was a private newspaper of fascists. And they used to do a thing called Jew crime, right? They had anti-Semitic caricatures. Every single time a Jewish person committed crime, they had a section called Jewish crime. They had Rasenschande, which is anytime a Jewish person had sex with a German woman. Anytime there was a Jewish sex offender, it was front page news. That's what they're doing. It's in the tradition of Der Stürmer. Now, Der Stürmer's publisher was ultimately executed at Nuremberg, even though all he did was spread propaganda and support and propagandize for the extermination of Jews. He was hung by the neck until dead. I think that is an appropriate punishment for fascist propagandists. So when we see a video targeting Somali population and saying they're all fraudsters and they're all stealing from welfare because 50 people committed crimes, and 50 people is a lot. I'm glad they're prosecuted. A lot of people think they can get away with committing fraud in this country because our president is Donald Trump. All he does is commit fucking fraud. According to the American writer Dennis Showalter, a major challenge of political anti-Semitism involves overcoming images of the Jew next door, the living, breathing acquaintance or associate whose simplest existence appears to deny the validity of that negative stereotype. The newspaper's lurid content appealed to a large spectrum of readers who are lower class and less sophisticated. Der Stürmer was known for its use of simple themes that required little thought. The newspaper gave descriptions of how to identify Jewish people and included racist political cartoons and anti-Semitic caricatures. Beside the graphic depictions, articles often focused on imaginary fears, exaggerations, and perceived behavioral differences between Jews and other German citizens. Stryker furthered medieval stereotypes of Jews killing children, sacrificing their bodies, and drinking blood. You notice how they've done that with Somalis eating cats? You remember that during the fucking presidential administration? Somalis are coming here and kidnapping cats off the street to feed on them. This is a type of blood libel, right? Oh, sorry, they did that with the Haitians, excuse me. But you get my point. Black refugee populations in this country. And that's what that's why they're spreading. The Somalis are doing scams. They're trying to throw shit on an entire immigrant community so it could be targeted for collective punishment. You're feeding into that by soft peddling a propaganda video. You deserve to be criticized for that. And I know it's a viral video. And guys, I'm just trying to get as many viewers as I can. Why are you using politics? I'm trying to just be an opportunistic fraud with no substance, using every viral video about politics and making a video that I throw up, and I never challenge anybody who liked the video, so I can make my audience number go up, so I can make money and then sell it to Gavin Newsom. We are in a moment of political crisis. I want you to understand that we're in a moment of political crisis. Donald Trump is trying to remake this country into a fascist state. He's attacking journalism. He's attacking higher education. He's targeting people for deportation because of their views. Did Atrioc make a video about the American green card holders and visa holders that were deported because they wrote articles criticizing Israel in their school newspaper or led peaceful protests against Israel's genocide in Gaza? Does that matter for Mr. Atrioc? We are in a political crisis. The Democratic Party, the establishment that he's trying to prop up with Gavin Newsom, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, they are falling over themselves to collaborate with Trump. We need a strong left response. I'm sorry that it isn't needlessly pandering to the center like you've done your entire career. We need a robust left-wing movement if we're going to build a social democracy or a socialist state. Now, I am a socialist because I study history and I see the long arc of progress that has taken place. You know, the means of production have advanced. As technology advances, as our productivity advances, I feel like human beings should have less work, more leisure, more freedom, more wealth, higher standard of living, and it should be distributed to all humanity, not just a tiny sliver that owns shares like you support. These losers love to criticize people like you and Hassan, but the moment these morons get a little pushback, they go full on schizo. They have no moral conviction. Yeah, he said that Hassan and Asmongold were two sides of the same coin because Hassan watched a video where Trump was being super racist, and he said this is a side of American nationalism and white supremacy. Like, that's wrong. But Atrioc was too cowardly to actually make a fucking point or show any clips. What a complete fraud.
The consecrator brain, where it's like, I'm sure plenty of people watched the video and did do this. I just, I found it to be a little frustrating. All right. Since I'm on the subject, I'll do one more crash out. I called out people going all conspiracy brain on memory prices. And this guy said, here's Gamers Nexus, one of the most trustworthy sources in the space, saying it might just be that. It's like, bro, I got no problem with Gamers Nexus. I feel like I'm in that J-Reg video. People
By the way, the video that he made about how private equity isn't buying up rental properties is because he's stupid. And he fell for propaganda from right-wing Democrats. Basically, they were going, look at this chart. Most housing is owned by, single-family homes, owner-occupied homes. And it's like, look at how small the private equity sliver of total housing is. And then that's not what people were arguing. We were not arguing that currently housing is mostly owned by private equity. See how they make a straw man and they go beat up the straw man? What we were talking about is that in new construction, private equity is buying up single family homes, and in markets like Atlanta, growth markets, private equity is purchasing up to 25% of available inventory, which means, and if you understand how markets work, Atrioc, which I think you talk a lot about them, but you don't actually understand how they work. There's something called the bid-ask spread. And the more buyers you have, the more bids are getting hit, meaning prices will rise unless there are more supply that's brought up. That's how it works. So when you have private equity leveraging low interest rates and borrowed cash, and they come into high demand markets like Atlanta, and they add more bids in, more buyers, more buyer cash, it drives up the price. And then if they get a large percentage of the marginal unit, again, that's how markets work. It's the marginal unit not settled purchases where somebody lives in their own home and has lived there for 30 years. That's not relevant to the way the market is trending now, which is what the discussion was, which is unaffordability. If you bought your house 10 years ago and you got a 30-year mortgage, you're locked in. You have your government subsidized and guaranteed mortgage, so you have low interest rates, and you're sitting good as gold. All you have to do is pay your mortgage, your property taxes, and your insurance, and you're good as golden, okay? That market, you're out of the market. Now, maybe the prices would rise to a level and you'd sell, but for the most part, that is not what we're talking about, Atrioc. And he was trying to spread this propaganda to protect Wall Street buying up a bunch of single-family homes. And here's an article, and so he made a video debunking it, but here's The Atlantic, which is a centrist fucking paper. This isn't even lefty sources. This is The Atlantic. Oops. How private equity is changing housing. In some communities, corporations control more than 20% of properties. Oops. I guess equity was, I thought it was only a tiny sliver, Atrioc. Somebody find me the Atrioc video so I could directly debunk it. See, the thing about these centrists is they're scared shitless of actually debating on the issues. I did it with Destiny. 7 debates, he threw in the fucking towel, and then he spent the next 7 years of his life trying to destroy me and insult me, like, with his fucking cult fans. Trying to turn me into a lol cow so people don't even listen to what I say because they can't debate. No, Mike, you're just wrong. It's coincident that even in historically dogshit housing markets like my area, single-family home sales to out-of-state corporate entities hit a historic high, and MFH sales to national property management companies also hit a historic high at the same time. Systems don't exist. Yeah. I mean, what a pathetic loser. We have a housing crisis, as you probably painfully know. Wouldn't you like to have someone to blame for it? The United States is short 4 million housing units, with a particular dearth of starter homes, moderately priced apartments and low rises, and family-friendly dwellings. Interest rates are high, which has stifled construction and pushed up the cost of mortgages. I gotta say, it's so refreshing to read something in The Atlantic that's true. It's so refreshing to read something in The Atlantic that's actually true. Can you shut up for a minute? I'm trying to process. Sorry, buddy. I'm sorry for giving you too much information. Should I spend some time giggling so that you can catch up? If I spent some time giggling with my Enron hat on, would you catch up? Rent going up? One company's algorithm could be why. So there was this algorithm that was sold to landlords that would help them illegally coordinate monopolistic rent increases. Atrioc, this is directly flies in the face of what Atrioc thinks the housing market could operate like, because he has a Econ 101 understanding of the economy, which I guess when you're talking to the average Twitch chatter feels like you're educated. But if you actually know anything about economics, you'll understand that housing markets, like wage markets, do not operate under perfect competition, perfect substitutability, perfect information. That doesn't exist, Atrioc. 40 million illegal immigrants equals 60 million homes needed, by the way. You can't have a home because the Democrats give your money to illegal immigrants. It's the truth. Don't fight it. Actually, it's the opposite. Illegal immigrants and immigrants overwhelmingly are in the construction industry, which is why we have a supply of homes existing, because we have a shortage of skilled tradesmen. That's part of the problem. The other problem is we have a shortage of cheap financing because everything has to be done by the private market, you dumb fuck. And when you deport immigrants, it makes the economy crash because people are what make value. The reason why China is going to dominate the United States is because they have more educated people than we do. All value is derived from human fucking beings. And the more skilled and educated and the better infrastructure they have around them, the more they're going to produce with limited resources. That's the problem with capitalism. It causes you to start fetishizing bullshit that doesn't matter. As a result, more Americans are renting, and roughly half of these households are spending more than a third of their income on shelter. This crisis has many causes: restrictive zoning codes, arcane permitting. I can't get the whole article. Processes, excessive community input, declining construction productivity, expensive labor, and expensive lumber. And some say the aggressive entry of private equity to the housing market. Institutional investors have bought up hundreds of thousands of American homes since the start of the coronavirus pandemic, outbidding families and pushing up rents, a trend lamented by everyone from AOC to JD Vance. And by the way, The Atlantic is going to say this is bad. No, it's not private equity, guys. It's not private equity. It's actually because we need to reduce regulations on corporations and make it so that they can build flop houses. Now, I want to explain to you why Atrioc and the YIMBY people he probably associates with are wrong. You guys understand that there's no bottom with regulations? Like, if you remove regulations, that does not build a single home. In order for a home to be built, it has to be profitable to do so if you leave it to the market. And when I mean profitable, I mean compared to any other investment, it has to be the best investment that a person has available to them. That's how capitalism works. So what would you need to do to make housing more profitable? The problem is you could strip everything and it still won't be. I think you guys don't understand that. If you stripped every regulation, it still won't be. What will happen? What will happen? And the answer to that is people will be renting beds, not apartment buildings, not rooms, not corners of rooms, but beds, where I rent the bed from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And you rent the bed from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. This is the reality of how these capitalists will drive your standard of living down to what Marx calls minimum level of subsistence or survival. There is no bottom. You rip up the regulations, you end redistribution, you say leave it to the market. There is no bottom. How do I know? Because it already existed in this country. People think about crowded tenements. They think about really shitty apartment buildings. You guys are you think that is the worst it could get? It's been way worse than that. All right. And the only thing that fixed the housing markets is government action, direct government action, building hundreds of thousands of apartment buildings with public housing, giving massive government subsidized mortgages. You think the 30-year mortgage popped out of the market? That was a creation of FDR. The way mortgages used to work were they were between 5 and 10-year loans where you would pay interest only. And then at the end of the 5 to 10 year period, you had to pay the entire principal. And then you would and if you were most people, they would refinance. Well, what happens if there's a credit crisis? What happens if interest rates go up? You're fucked. They'd foreclose on your house and take it. That's how America worked until FDR. There were not 30-year mortgages at 3%. You think the private market would lend money like that? That is a creation of the government. Why are you able to get a 30-year mortgage? Why are the interest rates so low? The reason why is because the government subsidizes and guarantees mortgages. Basically, it says to the banks, we guarantee your profit. If these mortgages go up, we will pay back the principal. Banks are basically feudal lords. Some people are just designated to make money on the function of a government provided loan. That's what we're talking about here. Now, I have models that work. I talk about the Vienna model. We've watched the Vienna model videos 80 fucking times on here, where they pay $600 a month for rent and they get a nice 2-bedroom apartment in the heart of one of the most desirable cities in the world, the most livable city according to The Economist, Vienna, Austria. I talk about how we can do a different kind of structure. I have a real workable plan. I have a model that exists. They have nothing but their faith in the market system. I have China building 50,000 miles of high-speed rail. How did they do that? Government provided loans, government owned high-speed rail company. That's how they fucking did it. China spent $800 billion. All right, I'm sorry. What was the? Okay, hold on. Let me look this up. But basically, what did the U.S. spend? U.S. spent on war on terror. The United States of America has spent $8 trillion on the war on terror. This was, by the way, that was from according to 4 years ago. Cost of the 20-year war on terror: $8,900,000 deaths. According to the South China Post, they spent $900 billion. So for $900 billion, they've got 50,000 kilometers of high-speed rail. And people will tell you, oh my God, look at all the debt the Chinese put together. For the 50,000 kilometers of high-speed rail, they did almost $900 billion in debt. That's 1 year of the Pentagon budget. 1 year of the Pentagon budget, and we could have high-speed rail crisscrossing this fucking country. Or we could have 900,000. Do you feel safer? Do you think this made America more powerful and safer? And by the way, China with the high-speed rail thing, people are paying for it. It's paying its own debts. It's not like it was $900 billion that were given to the high-speed rail network and then deleted like it is with our government for the military, right? Every dollar you put in the military is largely it's just burned. They have that infrastructure is connected to Chinese soil. It is a fixture. They have an accounting entity that owes $900 billion for it, and they're paying it back with fares. So leaving aside the fact that nobody expects the high speed, our highway system to make money, leaving aside the fact they're still charging fares and paying down their own debt. So they may actually have the fares pay down their own debt. And so the real investment is going to end up being nothing. But because the government structured these systems and set them up to succeed and put the backing of the government behind it, they have every city with more than 500,000 people is now connected to high-speed rail. And it's cheap. And high-speed rail runs on electricity, which means it doesn't see the cost rise because there's a war in the Middle East that cuts off oil. They've electrified it, so it is green. High-speed rail crisscrossing the country, and it's green. It's sustainable. Do you understand? And who does Atrioc want you to support? He wants you to support Gavin Newsom, who didn't see an Israeli atrocity that he didn't support, who failed to build one high-speed rail line in the most demanded place in the world between San Francisco and LA. Do you know how many flights there are between San Francisco and LA every day? Let's ask Google. How many flights between San Fran and LA per day? 100 to 200 flights combined. Today, this is today from the transit guy. Today, Los Angeles and the Bay Area will see 130 flights in both directions, equivalent to a plane departing every 6.5 minutes for 18 hours a day. And they couldn't complete high-speed rail. That includes Oakland, San Jose, and SFO, and that's LAX, LGB, Burbank, and Santa Ana Airport. Do you understand how fucking pathetic it is to like Gavin Newsom in 2026? Like, if you're a Gavin Newsom supporter, you want our country to fall to fascism. You want our country to fall to fascism because he's the first governor in California history to see population go down. Do you think it's because people don't want to live here? You don't think people want to live in LA? They can't afford it. It's $1 million for a 2-bedroom house in a shitty part of town. Do you think that happens because people don't want to live in LA?
He keeps spending on weapons, but says he's not to the world and foreign investors. Is that the age-old, if we print money in secret, there won't be inflation trick? Do you think that people being told about it is what causes the economic problems? Or do you think perhaps that it's just the spending itself that is the economic problem? I'm still not convinced that doesn't work. I would like you, I don't want to say a Charizard. I don't want to use a Charizard analogy, but I would like you to be convinced. If I print $1 billion in the woods and nobody sees it, is there inflation? No. If you print $1 billion in the woods and you bury it, there's no inflation. That's true. But if there's 3 people in a village, maybe we each have $2 and you make.
Okay, I'm sorry, chat. I can't listen to this kind of like baby level explanations for 7-year-olds. We need to have a little bit more sophistication for me. So we're going to have to go to 2 times speed during this part.
And you make apples, you make shovels. And we all use the money as a medium of exchange, but we're really just trading shovels for apples and apples for bread. Okay, I take $2, I buy an apple. You use the money you got from me to buy some bread. Use the money for me to buy some shovels. If a 4th guy shows up with a money printer and he's not producing anything, but he's got money to buy all the apples and buy all the bread and buy all the shovels, the price will go up. There's more money in the economy chasing the same number of goods. We haven't added new goods, we've only added more money. This seems very good for the 4th guy. It is. It's called being a government. It's really good. You don't have to make anything, you can just print it. And it just steals the value of all of this. Just make raising prices illegal. I do have a metaphor for this. I've been thinking about this. I'm trying to explain.
See, the problem with this explanation of even in his 4-person model, he was too stupid to do it right. That's incredible. I have a question for you, Atrioc. How did money exist? Until this guy was here, how did they have money? You failed in your 3-person model. How did they have money? You just assume the existence of money. You can't assume the existence of money. That's the problem with this kind of centrist thinking, is because it's not what you know. It's what you know that isn't so. That fucks you. You can't just look at a situation and go, assume the existence of money. Okay, well, see, the problem is, without the printer guy, there is no money. Why does everybody exist? Why does everybody agree that money is a thing? Why do they agree to exchange stuff in exchange for money? You're leaving out the most important parts of why it exists. And this is why you can't think like this, chat. Like these kind of explanations are okay to kind of like become aware of concepts, but you can't stay here. You can't stay on the Atrioc level. 101 is not economics. That is a introductory course to teach you concepts so that then you can then go on and learn about how more complicated models describe the actual economy. That's the purpose of economics. The purpose of economics is not to learn these little tales and then you have some answer. Okay, that's not true. That's not right. That's not correct. Do you understand? Do you understand why thinking like this is simplistic? Do you understand why thinking like this leads to disaster? I think what he's trying to say is that inflation is caused by too much money chasing too few goods, which is exactly what libertarians believe. But the reality is inflation is based on expectation. That is how prices work. And ultimately, yes, when the government, spends more to the economy, that's more demand. But sometimes demand in other areas is flagging. Sometimes the government printing money is good because there is a secular decline in the economy. I thought he read Keynes. I thought he said he read Keynes. How come he's writing? How come he's saying dumb Mises bullshit? I thought he read Keynes. And what I'm saying about expectation means sometimes printing money will cause inflation and sometimes it won't. It depends on the context of the economy. And the reason why I'm telling you this is I don't want you to be stupid. I'm tired of dealing with morons who repeat dumb stories like this instead of understanding the economy at a deeper level. You need to be smarter than Atrioc in order for politics to make sense.
Feels the value of all of this. Just make raising prices illegal. I do have a metaphor for this. I've been thinking about this. I've been trying to explain why I can have the exact same goals as someone where I truly believe, man, it is so up that housing is getting too expensive, especially for lower income people, and we need to have more housing for them. And I can have wildly different solutions to them. And I'm trying to explain why I think that way. I'm trying to explain why I don't think the plan of like rent control will work. And so one example that I came up with was like, imagine you're a farmer, all right? Chat, you are a farmer now. You own a farm, and it's a farm in a really cool place where you can grow bananas and apples at the same time. Now, let's say it costs you on
I mean, I don't know who taught Atrioc that these kind of like thought experiments. This is very destiny coded to me. I don't know who taught Atrioc that these thought experiments can explain the world, but this is brain dead. I want you to understand that this is actually brain dead. This is actually brain dead.
Average, I don't know, 50 cents for the food and the water and the growing and your time and your effort and the plowing or whatever you got to do to get it costs you 50 cents per apple to make, and you sell it for $1. Same with the bananas. Your farm is half apples, half bananas, because who knows what happens. You want to diversify, but they both make the same profit. If, for example, the government made it illegal for you to charge $1 for a banana. Let's say they made it so you could only charge 75 cents or more realistically, 50 cents. You don't need to be greedy. No greed. Just pay what it costs. In the short term, people are like, damn, bananas got cheaper. This is f***ing awesome. But over the next year, how do you think the split of your farm is going to look? What do you think it's going to look like? How many apples, how many bananas? Yeah, it's going to be all apples. The supply of this banana.
Does he think housing is the same thing as a purely substitutable commodity like fruit? Does he think housing operates in the same way as fruit? Also, if everybody switches to apples, the price of apples will go down because there'll be an oversupply of apples. So what is he saying will go down if we do rent control? Okay, I'm sorry, Chad. Here's what we need to understand. Housing is not like apples. Here's why. One, it's not perfectly substitutable, meaning a house built in, say, Las Vegas is not the same thing as a house built in Beverly Hills. Even if the houses themselves are physically identical, meaning the same architect, the same plumbers, the same carpenters, the same roofers, the same painters, the same designers, everything about them is the same. Physically, the house at Beverly Hills is going to be worth 10 times as much as the house in Las Vegas. Why? Because there's also an element of land. Land is not perfectly substitutable. Land is excludable. Land ownership is monopolistic, meaning my parcel is the only parcel that is that. Now, there are similar parcels But even on the same street, we see how this isn't the case. If you have a corner lot, your house is going to be worth than somebody who has neighbors on all sides. Even if it's the same size parcel on the same street, just where on the street it's, if you're 50 yards closer to the bus stop, that house might be worth more, right? What I'm trying to say is they're not perfectly substitutable. They're not like apples, okay? Apples are perfectly substitutable. It doesn't matter where you grow the apple. An apple is an apple is an apple. And the problem with the housing discourse is he also is not talking about housing, how it actually functions in the real economy. When I buy a house, my costs are fixed at the point of purchase, meaning I get a mortgage and buy a house. I get a 30-year rent control. That is subsidized by the government. All the costs are understood. And I have a fixed payment for 30 years. You know what happens in 30 years? 30 years of inflation. If I can afford $1,000 mortgage payment this year, imagine how much $1,000 in mortgage payment will be in 30 years. That'll be fucking nothing. The current value of money is a lot higher than it will be in 30 years, assuming 2% inflation. Let's do an inflation calculator so you understand what I'm saying. This is why he doesn't understand why rent control works. I'm going to explain why rent control works. Okay? I'm going to explain. Now, it's not good if it's the only thing you do, and I'll explain why that is. But rent control absolutely works. Of course it works. Let's go 30 years ago. That's 1995. Let's say that you have a $1,000 mortgage in 1995. That would be the same as having a $2,156 mortgage today. Do you understand what I'm saying? Is $1,000 in 1995 is worth more than double. So a $1995 is worth more than double a $2025. But your mortgage payment didn't change. Your mortgage payment stayed $1,000. As the years went on, you didn't see your rent go up. On the contrary, your rent went down. And now when I say rent, I'm saying mortgage. Mortgage is just another word for rent that you're paying to a bank. And at the end, you get to own the property, as opposed to when you pay rent, it goes into the landlord's fucking profit. So why does rent control work? Well, because when a landlord buys a building in 1995 and builds it, his costs are fixed in 1995. He's paying that $1,000 mortgage, but every year he's raising the rent. Every year he's benefiting from the appreciation of the value of speculation land value. It's not a perfect commodity, chat. There's an asset there that retains value, namely the land. The building might depreciate, but the land value goes up. So he has rent control. The landlord has rent control. It's called a mortgage. The mortgage doesn't float. The mortgage doesn't increase. So every year he has the building and he keeps raising the rent. The gap between the rent collected and the mortgage payment goes up. What causes people to build buildings? What causes people to build buildings is if current rent minus all the costs is going to be greater than the financing, right? If you amalgamate all the costs together, if current rent pencils out as greater than paying down that mortgage, then you'll build housing. That is an extremely expensive rent. That's an extremely expensive rent. That is you have to be in a situation of constrained supply with high rents that are likely to increase, because if rent goes down, then the entire financing gets blown up. Meaning the landlord is not going to be able to pay back the mortgage, and then the bank is going to have to repossess the property, and then it's going to have to write down. That's why housing. That's why they're against rent control, right? Because the free market, the private developer, will only develop in a situation when all their costs together is going to lead to them having a profitable payment now, not 20 years from now, but now. So rent control is not about future buildings, it's about previous buildings. So of course it could work. Of course it could work. That's why Vienna has had rent control. When did Vienna enact rent control? Sorry, this is wrong. 1994. Fuck, I thought it was 95. Shit. That's why I was citing 1995. But anyway, in 1994, how Vienna ensures affordable housing for all with rent control. Wait a minute. Vienna has affordable housing for all and rent control? How's that work?
I wanted to talk about housing in Vienna, which is often lauded as this pinnacle of housing policy, especially.
Okay, so there was recently a propaganda put out by libertarian think tank Cato Institute, which is a far right organization, and they're trying to be like, no, it's bad actually that housing is it's bad actually. So that must be what this is on.
By people on the left, I would say, where the Socialist Party in Vienna, long time ago, started offering public housing at a scale that most other cities just do not have available, and public housing without the intention of it being for low income people specifically. Public housing for everybody. Not the only city in the world to do this. Now their rental market is a little over 50% public housing, and that splits into.
Okay, it's not just okay. I would love to get off on track onto Atriox like orbiters at this point, but let's not get distracted. Let's not get distracted.
Start beef with me and someone else. I'm not in the fucking YouTube drama space, bro. But here's what
sorry. I went to another video. Here it is.
Will drop because the farmer will rationally go to something else.
Why is rent control necessary? I'm sorry, I didn't finish the explanation. Okay. Why is rent control necessary? Well, because the guy who built the apartment building 20 years ago, when rents are going up because there's constrained supply, he just raises the rent along with everybody else, and he makes windfall profits. So he'll have a tenant that's been in the building for 15 years paying rent on time, and it was always profitable. But he sees that the rental market rents are going up. So what does he do? He raises the rent, and he gains windfall profits. Now, why does he have windfall profits? It's not because he's building housing, chat. It's because he has a government granted ownership of land. That's not market production. That is a monopoly granted to him by the government. So he gains windfall profits because of a government granted monopoly on land. What the fuck are we doing here? He's not providing housing. He just has windfall profits. So when you do rent control, what you say is, listen, we are not going to allow windfall profits for previously existing properties. If you built a house 20 years ago and you've been making profitable rent on it for 20 years, you're not going to be able to double the rent and throw out your long-term tenant. You're going to be limited in how much you can raise the rent. By the way, rent control doesn't mean 0% rent increase. It means limited to like usually double inflation. So what is the justification for existing landlords raising rent by a shit ton? There is none other than, well, they own it. Because remember, new construction is not based off of the rent being paid to old buildings. It's whether current market rates are more profitable than the cost of constructing a new building. That is the whole calculation. But what Atriox is doing is he's muddying the waters and saying it's a housing market. Now, why is all of this detail very important? This detail is important is because his policies will not fix housing. I'll say this again. His policies will not fix housing, because if you allow rents to just go whatever, do whatever, you let the housing market be perfectly free, they're not going to build housing unless it makes money. Well, what if interest rates are going up? Instead of a capitalist building an apartment building that has a return of 6 or 7% on his money, if interest rates at the Fed are 10%, he'll go buy treasury bonds. And until the interest rates go low, until building housing is the most attractive investment for that capitalist, he's not going to do it. That's the logic of markets. Now, what's great about markets is government doesn't have to coordinate anything or doesn't have to do anything. If profitable opportunities arise, people will spontaneously go and do it, that's the advantage of a market. You have a bunch of people looking for profitable opportunities to do economic activity, and they do them. That's the advantage of a market. It is not without its advantages, because there's informational problems about understanding exactly what, all the opportunities. And sometimes people are making probabilistic assessments that if it's sunny this summer, I'll make money. But if it's rainy this summer, I'll lose money. Well, if everything was purely command economy and the government guessed that it would be sunny and it turned out to be rainy, that would be bad. So the advantage of capitalism is that you have some people making bets that it'll be sunny and some people that'll be making bets that'll be rainy. And if it's rainy, the sunny people lose. But that doesn't mean that they were wrong. It just means they made a probabilistic guess and nobody could have known. and we're allowing the lucky people to win. That's a large part of how our economy functions. That is the robustness of capitalism. I'm being as pro-capitalist as I possibly can be. What does fixing housing mean? Right? Like, this is the other problem with Atrioc, is this is not intelligent, guys. I don't know what else to say. He's not. What does fixed housing mean, man? What does that mean? And the reason why I'm asking that question is because the answer is very important. What does fixing housing mean? And it depends on whose perspective you're looking at. If you're looking at the perspective of a landlord, then fixing housing is making as much money for landlords as possible. If you're a developer, fixing housing is making developing housing as profitable as possible. If you're a tenant, fixing housing means lowering rent. If you're somebody who's trying to buy a home, then fixing housing is making homes affordable for you. If you're a homeowner, fixing housing is making housing prices rise so that you have more money. You understand that there are different people with different goals and different values about what fixing housing is? Now, I come from the perspective that fixing housing is when everybody has access to abundant, high-quality housing as a human right. That's fixing housing for me. I don't know what fixing housing means for Atrioc. I really don't. I have no idea what fixing housing means for him. Does fixing housing mean profitable for developers? Does fixing housing mean profitable for landlords? Does fixing housing mean lower rents for tenants? Does fixing housing mean increasing the cost and price of single-family homes so existing homeowners make more money? What is fixing housing for Atrioc? Because all those things are in conflict. Somebody has to win and somebody's got to lose.
Will go to the better option. They will try to find something else to do. When you add rent control to an area, what happens every single time is they take supply off the market, they convert it to Airbnbs, they convert it to owner-occupied things, they black market sell it to cousins or friends, they reduce building because they can't plan for how much they can charge. You just end up with less rental supply. And I'm not being facetious, I'm being literal. Like, Berlin did a rent freeze in 2019, and then by 1 year later, rental supply had dropped 30%. People who got lucky and got a rent controlled apartment are like, yeah, that's awesome. If you're a student who moves to Berlin in 2019, you go, this is based. I lucked into an apartment and it's stuck there. If you're a student who moves there 1 year later, you're like, wow, things are fucking expensive. The little supply that's left is like insanely expensive. I'm bringing this up because to me, this is very obvious, but I don't want to be like.
So I don't know how to say this, but if you just do rent control, then obviously it's not going to work because you need to provide housing. Rent control is about who should profit from housing, right? It limits the profits of landlords and keeps it in the hands of tenants. We call that pre-distributional policy. Now, as I said before, the profitability of a building is fixed upon the construction of the building and whether or not it has vacancies and whether or not it has tenants. What they're paying for the building is fixed and predictable. Like, it's not it. So what Atrioc is saying is you need windfall profits for existing landlords in order to induce new housing construction. I have another strategy for housing construction. What if the government just builds housing? What if the government just builds housing for people all the time? What if the government gives low interest loans to co-ops to build housing? What if we have a private market that still exists for the ultra high end, high margin, high profit apartments and houses? What if the government says we're just going to spend this amount of money on building new apartments? We're going to build a core of government employees that are we're going to get the highest quality designers and carpenters, plumbers, electricians. We're going to put out apartments year after year after year. We're also going to set up programs that if you don't like a government apartment, you get 10 or 15 people together, you can form a housing co-op and you put a little bit of money in, the government will help you borrow money at low interest rates. You build an apartment building as long as that has a co-op structure, there is rent control. And we know the rent control will work because the rent and the costs, the assessments of the co-op will be higher than the fixed costs. And you have a right to that apartment for life. And if you're like, well, Mike, that can't work. That's how it works. That's how it works right now. It's not hard. It's been working for decades.
Livable apartments have become a luxury in many large cities. Vienna, however, has deliberately chosen a different path. For over 100 years, we have considered affordable housing a public responsibility that is best met by an effective public housing sector.
To understand Vienna's unique housing situation,
I want you to understand something, chat. Atrioc doesn't want you to live in this. This is what he wants you to live in. This is what he wants you to live in. He thinks this is evil and this is good.
What is up? This here, LA in a minute.
Atrioc thinks this is good. He thinks this is good.
And I'm here in Central City East, better known as Skid Row. And while I've no organization population, but it dates back.
See these abandoned commercial buildings with nothing happening in there? Because land speculators hold property vacant. They hold property vacant. So this 30% of commercial property in Los Angeles is empty. So you have hundreds of thousands of acres of totally vacant commercial land, and outside of it is people living in tents. Atrioc thinks this is good. He wants you to live in this. He thinks this right here, that's an invasion of rights. To him, all is right in the world right here. This is what he wants for you. If it's not profitable for a developer, he wants you in a fucking tent. That's what Atrioc wants for you. And I'm done sugarcoating what these liberals are about. That's what they're about. You can't pay your rent. He wants you to live on the fucking street. He wants you in the street. Because God forbid we tax the rich. And do you know how much it costs to make Vienna this? Do you know what the housing tax is in Vienna? 0.5% of income. 0.5% income tax. That's what Atrioc is fighting tooth and nail. That multimillionaire Atrioc is fighting a 0.5 income tax tooth and nail, and he wants you to live in a fucking tent. That's what he wants. That's what he's about. That's who he is.
you have to know its history. At the beginning of the 20th century, it had more than 2 million inhabitants, a larger population size than in the present day. At that time, about 300,000 people in the city had no access to decent living space. Vienna was
Mike,
reputed
why am I not in
to be
Zoran
the
Because I'm not in New York. That's the answer.
European capital with the worst housing. As a result, the Social Democratic
That's
Viennese
bullshit,
government...
hyperbolic. No, it's not. No, it's fucking not. He's saying he doesn't want the policies that already work in Vienna today. This is not a hypothetical. He's smart enough to do a Google search. He's rich enough to fly to Vienna and walk around. I'm sorry you don't like to hear it without a sugarcoating and an ass kissing. If you're going to talk about politics and you're going to say rent control doesn't work, and I say it exists in Vienna and has since 1994, what's your fucking response? It's the most livable city in the world. It looks like rent control doesn't stop Vienna from working. What's on your mind, my friend?
made concerted efforts to improve living standards after World War I. The dogma was, apartments are not goods. Having one is a right. In 1923, the foundation for the first large residential construction program was laid. A new municipal city council decree foresaw the construction of 25,000 apartments within 5 years, and another 30,000 from 1929 to 1933. Public housing projects were never limited to certain districts.
This is also what Atrioc doesn't want. He doesn't want you to be able to live in Santa Monica or Beverly Hills or whatever rich fucking neighborhood he lives in. He doesn't want your poor ass in that neighborhood. He doesn't like the way Vienna has housing projects in every neighborhood. He hates that. He only wants his rich buddies, his rich white people around him. He doesn't want you poors to have a nice apartment building in Santa Monica. He doesn't want you guys to have a nice apartment building in Malibu. That's for the rich people, not for you, scum. Go live in a fucking tent.
Were implemented across Vienna, regardless of the social status of the area. Owing to this clear, long-standing policy, the social background of a person cannot be determined by their postal address. The most essential principles of the Austrian First Republic are still valid today. These include affordable, high-quality buildings, social cohesion, and a balanced social mix. As a result, social housing has a long and successful tradition that has now lasted for more than 100 years. It is this continuity.
We need to study it, guys. It's only been successful for 100 years. Atrioc thinks we need more time to study and more time for you to be in a tent.
Which is unique. Nowadays, Vienna, Austria's capital, is home to 1.9 million inhabitants. Along with New York and Geneva, it is home to the United Nations and other important global diplomatic organizations. It is the fifth largest capital in the European Union and the second largest city in the German-speaking world. Today,
now, chat, he talked about Berlin, but somehow he forgot Vienna existed. He talked about Berlin, but he forgot Vienna.
Half of all Viennese live in subsidized apartments. These housing complexes are spread across the city, ensuring a positive social mix in each district. Vienna is the fastest growing city in the German-speaking world. Although the growth of population slowed down in recent years, it is still expanding at around 10,000 people per year, and this high ratio is expected to continue over the next few years. The pressure on the municipality to provide the population with attractive and affordable apartments in a healthy, safe, and livable environment is huge. Hence, local government invests up to...
That's it? 400 million? 400 million. That's it. $400 million. We just gave Israel $8.9 billion of F-15 fighter jets. We just spent $900 billion on the Pentagon.
400 million euros annually in housing construction and renovation of older buildings. Another 100 million euros is reserved for local residents who are unable to afford even subsidized rents. The subsidies are financed through federal taxes and the general income tax system. This funding through taxation creates a reliable basis for the planning of complex housing programs, which would be impossible under strictly market-dependent housing policies. The quota is regulated by a federal law and amounts to 0.5% of the gross income of employees and employers.
I'll say that again, chat. 0.5%. Atrioc would rather you live in a fucking tent and die than pay 0.5% taxes. It's that simple.
Income of employees and employers. On the basis of this tax, Vienna receives an annual amount of about 250 million euros for housing construction purposes from the federal state. Besides money, there are other important factors that help tenants sleep well at night. City dwellers enjoy a very strong tenancy law in Austria. Another essential factor is the Limited Profit Housing Act. This act provides the legal framework.
Guys, this is what housing looks like when you take power away from people like Atrioc. I want you to understand that Atrioc is as much of your enemy as Donald Trump. Promoting Gavin Newsom. Look at the California fucking housing situation. He thinks Gavin Newsom should be our president. That means he wants more tents on the street. That means he wants more failed high-speed rail projects. That means he wants lower taxes on corporations. That means he wants private cell phones being sent to CEOs so they can call Gavin Newsom directly while you rot on the fucking street. And I'm sorry to make it so stark, but he just propagandized his audience about rent control. This is what it looks like in a city with rent control. I want you to understand, this is what a city with rent control looks like.
For all limited profit construction associations, whether organized as a cooperative.
Guys, I don't know about this, but I see high quality public transit next to a whole bunch of towers going up. I see a whole bunch of construction happening. I was told that can't happen in rent control. I told this is impossible. This is 0.5% income tax. Atrioc, the fact that you spread your propaganda without any curiosity and with no fucking like shame is embarrassing to me. Don't you feel bad? I mean, like, is that 0.5% of your money that important to you that you would lie to your audience and you would put a scam artist like Gavin Newsom in front of them and say, yeah, that'll make your life better. You really 0.5% of your income? Really? You don't want to live in this society? You'd rather live in a society like we have in LA? Like, I really want to know what motivates you to be this fucking evil. Are you that greedy for 0.5%?
Or as a corporation. It defines not only the principles of the public good status, but also other issues, such as the handling of rents or the membership of a supervisory association. Another key factor for affordable housing was the establishment of the Vienna Land Distribution and Urban Renewal Fund in 1984 to provide land for state-subsidized housing construction and to supervise the renovation of old houses. As a non-profit organization, Wohnfonds Wien, as it is called today, coordinates property developers, house owners, municipal departments and service centers of the municipality of Vienna. Because of its land reserves and long-term planning, Wohnfonds Wien is still able to buy agricultural or brownfield land at good rates despite the increasing price of land. Recent years have seen land and real estate prices in many European cities spiraling out of control. To counteract this development, the city of Vienna amended its building code in November 2018 by introducing the subsidized housing zoning category. If land is thus classified as belonging to a subsidized housing zone, 2/3 of the usable floor space created for housing purposes must be taken up by subsidized dwellings. This caps rents and safeguards that affordable homes will continue to be constructed across the entire city, and again, ensures a good social mix all over Vienna. All these measures provide for an adequate supply of good housing in Vienna, as well as the rest of Austria. Last but not least, these benefits contribute to Vienna being continually voted the city with the highest standard of living in the world. Vienna was ranked as the most livable city worldwide 10 times in a row.
Atrioc would rather you be in a tent than limit the profit of a corporate landlord. He would rather his own city be unsafe, unaffordable for working class people, and covered in homeless people in tents than live in a city that is the most livable, because he'd rather have 0.5% of his income in his bank account than live in a city that works. You need to let these liberals go.
This includes Quality of Living Ranking 2019 by Mercer, as well as being classified as the best place to live worldwide by the Global Livability Index 2019 through The Economist. In comparison with other big cities, Vienna has rather moderate rent prices. To maintain this, even in times when the housing market is under great pressure due to the financial markets and the ever-increasing population, the city administration invests, as mentioned, annually roughly 400 million euros in housing construction and renovation of older buildings. With this funding budget, around 7,000 good quality, affordable apartments are built every year, and over 5,000 apartments refurbished on average. Nowadays, the benchmark rent for a well-equipped municipal apartment is €5.81 per square metre. Excluding taxes and operating costs, the benchmark rent for a subsidised apartment is nearly the same. When we study how people live, we can determine that Vienna is a city of tenants. Over 3/4 of Vienna's population rent accommodation, with only around 20% living in flats or houses that they own. There are mainly two forms of affordable housing in Vienna: the municipal housing apartments owned by the city.
And the reason why their housing market works is because they have a building proudly called Karl Marxhof. That's why it works. Because they don't shy away from saying who motivated their city to care for every resident.
City of Vienna, and the non-profit residential construction buildings owned and operated by non- or limited-profit cooperatives or associations. Already since the 1950s, parallel to the social housing construction of the Viennese municipality, non-profit housing construction has been making a considerable contribution to apartment production. Responsible for the building management of the Viennese municipal housing complexes is Wiener Wohnen, Vienna's municipal housing company. With 4,000 employees, Wiener Wohnen is Europe's largest manager of municipal properties. Altogether, Wiener Wohnen looks after 1,800 housing complexes containing 220,000 apartments, more than 5,000 business premises or doctors' practices, and nearly 50,000 garages and outdoor parking spots. And although the city of Vienna recently decided to build another 4,000 new municipal housing units, most efforts have been made since the early 2000s to promote the concept of subsidized housing. This program is supported by non- or limited profit construction associations, which are responsible for building, renovating, and administrating apartments for the benefit of the general public. These must be approved by the federal state government as charitable. Such building associations belong to a federation watchdog which regularly reviews their business activities. Non-profit building associations predominantly build dwellings that are subsidized according to the Housing Development Acts of the provinces. Therefore, for the rent or purchase of an apartment, the funding provisions must be complied with. To ensure that the quality of affordable housing in Vienna fulfills the highest quality standards, Vienna has a detailed planning process, including rigorous competitions for selecting developers and architects. This is called the Four Pillars process. Only those projects which provide the highest standards in the fields of economy, ecology, architecture, and social sustainability will be selected by an interdisciplinary panel of experts.
Now, chat, this is what my world looks like. Atriox's world is unlimited rent increases, deregulation, removing air filters, removing sustainability mandates, removing any kind of construction controls. He wants you to live in a fucking flop house. He wants you to live in a corner room. He wants you to not be. He wants you to pay $1,000 a month for a shared room because that'll make money for the land speculators and the landlords. That's his value. And I know that it's tough to hear. Like, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be mad at me for saying it like this and not being a pussy about it and not being a coward about it and being like, well, he just supports the wrong policies. He knows this stuff. He talked about Berlin. He knowingly lied to his audience, ignored Vienna so he could spread propaganda for landlords and developers and help Gavin Newsom with his campaign to spread Californian failure all over the entire country. He attacked Zoran Mamdani for rent freeze. He attacked Zoran for his policies, but he rode along with him when he was at the top of the algorithm. You need to have higher standards for the people you listen to. You need to not accept people that spread propaganda for their own profit.
For housing construction projects with a volume of at least 500 subsidized dwellings, developer competitions are mandatory. Smaller projects are evaluated by the Land Advisory Board, which is also a part of Wohnfonds Wien. Both systems use similar criteria to determine eligibility for housing. You have to have a minimum age of 18.
So what they're saying is the moment you turn 18 in Vienna, you get on the list to get your own subsidized apartment. Can you imagine when you were 18 years old in high school, you immediately get on a list to have your own apartment. And if you don't make a lot of money, the rent slides based on the money you make.
Monthly income must not be more than 3,410 euros after tax with a single person, 5,080 euros and 71 cents for a two-person household, and 5,750 euros for a three-person household.
By the way, chat, this is never rechecked. So if you made less than $3,410 as an 18-year-old, you would have gotten the apartment, and it's never rechecked. Once you're in, that's your apartment. If you start making more money than that, you never have to leave.
These relatively high income limits, 75% of the Viennese population earn less, provide that the middle class also has access to Vienna's subsidized housing. Everybody who wants to rent public housing must have lived in Vienna for at least 2 years. You have to be an Austrian citizen, come from a member state of the European Union, or have an equivalent status. To get one of the municipal housing flats or a smart apartment or a subsidized apartment with a procuration fee under €10,000, you also have to fulfill socially oriented allocation criteria. The long-standing history of affordable housing in Vienna and the ongoing political will and practice that maintains it makes Vienna a great place to live. Constantly providing its residents with affordable homes needs constant commitment and a wealth of action. As in the past, this action will ensure future generations have access to high-quality, affordable apartments.
This is reality. I'm sorry, I linked myself. Whoops, I linked my own channel. Whoops. Hold on. This is reality. And by the way, 18,000 views. I swear, almost all the views of this video come from me. It's just how often does the deputy mayor of a city make a video about their housing policy? You know what I mean? No. No. If necessary. He was like, you're trying to get into Austria, aren't you? No, I'm trying to bring Austria here. Okay, sorry for that doing that, chat. Let's go back to Atrioc. Now, that was my explanation of housing policy, rent control, housing construction policy that we should pursue. Let's listen to Atrioc's discussion. Let's see who's got a little bit more knowledge.
Condescending about it. I don't want to be like, oh, you don't see it. I want to explain really simply, like, this is why it happens this way every time. And you can agree with the problem, and you could really want it to be fixed and suggest that many, many cities have tried this and failed. It's the opposite of this, but the same problem. This graph, have you seen this? It's like this, but restricts supply. But it's the same thing. It's like, this will work this time, and then it goes in a fucking loop. I want to explain this because I wonder if I have this chart. Yeah, here we go. This is a chart on the New York City housing shortage. It's looking at different cities and their housing costs compared to per capita income. I don't know if you know this, but the landlords in Chicago are not less greedy than the landlords in San Jose or Los Angeles. It's not like they're magically nicer in Dallas.
Okay, so the reason why it's cheaper in Chicago and Detroit is because neoliberalism destroyed those cities and they lost their manufacturing cores. Detroit has collapsed. They've been in an economic depression since for decades, right? So there is a vast supply of housing because people left because the economy crashed. Do you understand? So all the cities of the Midwest have had their populations collapse.
In Detroit and Chicago, and there's no rent control here. They just have better zoning laws, and so they build more. They build above the rate of new.
They build more in Detroit? Now he's just making shit up. This is what people listen to who are liberal. They look at a line graph and some guy just spouts bullshit.
Going into the city. Yeah, I'm just trying to explain this in a way that I feel like I agree with so much of the ethos of people that advocate for rent control, but I feel like they are just have a refusal to break from Rizzlernomics. Like, I agree with the villains, I agree with the goals, I agree, but the method is so foolish. What if?
So, by the way, Chad, I showed you Vienna, what my policies are. It's the best in the world at solving the problem. It's existed for 100 years. The population there is going up, so it's not a population collapse, and it exists. And the cost is a 0.5% income tax. And here we have this guy saying that I'm doing Rizzlernomics. You understand why we don't consider, like, and the reality is this is a very influential political thought process in America. This guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about at all.
Better zoning laws and more rent control that are mutually exclusive. To me, it's like if you're saying, I want to get healthy. I'm going to eat right. I'm going to diet. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to smoke 2 packs a day. That's what it's like to me. Where it's
now, as I remember, chat, rent control is on previously constructed buildings. Previously constructed buildings that have their costs fixed because they take a mortgage. They have the expenses of building the building. They know what their payments are. And then the rent is relative to that. That's set upon the construction of a new building, right? Rent control doesn't even stop you from raising rent. It just stops you from doing windfall profits where, you know, I have a building that I built 15 years ago and then rent really spikes in my city and now I double the rent. That's windfall profits for the landlord. That's not a subsidy for development. Development is when somebody new comes in and the cost of building a new building and acquiring the land and paying the financing costs is more profitable than any other investment I could make. That's when a developer, a private developer, will be incentivized by the market to develop. And this isn't even complicated, like economic reasoning, chat. This is just understanding how things actually work in the real world and thinking about it directly for more than 5 minutes. Atrioc doesn't even try to do that. He uses analogies about apples and bananas, and he's acting condescending. He's acting condescending. I guess the Austrians, who have had a successful model for 100 years, are just living in La La Land. They're in Shangri-La. It's not real. Meanwhile, every single Anglophile country has a housing shortage because they're all Atriocs. The only place where housing isn't a crisis is where? Singapore, China, Vienna, non-English speaking countries where they have things like rent control or the government owns all the land.
Like, dude, I think Eat Right is great. I love all the things you're saying at the beginning. That's great. I think you could probably stop with the cigarettes. It's just an extremely kick the ladder down policy. It's extremely you, I got mine.
No, it isn't. This guy is arguing that landlords should be able to double your rent and throw you out of your house. And that's a kick, and saying, no, that's a bad policy is a kick the ladder out. You know what Atrioc would say? Well, I've lived in Los Angeles for 15 years in this same apartment. I've paid my rent on time, and you're doubling my rent. You know what Atrioc would say? He would say, you're too poor to live in LA. It's a luxury to live in LA. That's what he would say. Fundamentally, that's what he believes. He believes he's better than you because he makes more money, so LA's for him. And you can stay in LA if you're willing to live on the street.
Make things expensive for people who aren't currently set up forever so that I can get a you, I got mine right now. People are relating this back to New York. It's because of a conversation we had on the podcast. I was just annoyed. I think I was frustrated because I think I, on the podcast, said like 99 good things about Mamdani. Because overall, I'm just really excited that a young person without financial ties to, corrupt.
And this is why he's our enemy, because he's a fake friend. He's a fraud. He opposes everything that made Mamdani popular. He's just associating himself with it to get clout for himself. And I'm sorry, Hassan, but I firmly disagree that we're not in that period anymore. We don't need any more fake friends, okay? We don't need grifters. We need people that are going to support the policies that work. And if you're not on board with Medicare for all and social housing and high-speed rail and free college, I don't want you around. You are just trying to use Mamdani's popularity to boost yourself. And you don't know a lot less than you think, Atrioc. You're not a policy expert. The only expert I see from you is marketing and self-promotion. You're not an expert on public policy.
Financial ties, got elected. I was very excited about it. And then I said one thing that I was like, listen, man, I don't f this rent control thing. And then
by the way, it's a rent freeze because they've raised the rent in New York City extremely on the rent control board. And these are, by the way, old apartments that have existed for a long time. It's not rent control on new construction. I know that Atrioc likes to lie and say that existing buildings are the same thing as new construction, but the logic behind development is different than the logic for profitability for a landlord. I know that he can't in his mind understand the difference between the two, but it's not the same thing. Basically, what Atrioc is saying is we need more feudal lords to own you so that anytime economic productivity is increased, it should go in the pockets of landlords. That's what Atrioc believes. Insane.
They cannot give an inch. They can't be like, accept anything less than perfection. It's crazy. It's very frustrating. It's a frustrating political environment we're in. It feels
I think we need to wealth tax Atrioc. How much money does Atrioc have? Like, how much money does Atrioc have?
Bad faith. This doesn't even get into the grading of rental properties. Nah, listen, I'm trying to keep it simple, bro. The real truth is that like the incentive then becomes to not invest in maintenance at all. If you can't raise the prices in response with inflation, then what you have to do is cut costs.
By the way, so he doesn't even understand what rent control is. Rent control always allows you to raise the rent. He's actually dumb. He doesn't even know what rent control is. Rent control doesn't mean, no, you can never raise the rent. It's a limit on how much you can raise the rent. Usually it's double. Okay, according to the rent control board, it was 5% in 2022, 5.2% in 2024 to 2025, and 4.5% for 25-26. So inflation last year was 3%. So the rent control board has allowed them to raise the rent by greater than inflation. So he's not even right. For a 1-year lease commencing on October 1st, 2022 and on or before September 30th, 2023, 3.25%. And for a 2-year lease, 5%. You can see them raising the rent faster than inflation. So he's just wrong about what he's talking about.
And so you end up with decrepit, dilapidated buildings, which is also what happened in New York. But I think
I used to live in rent stabilized unit in NYC. The landlords could also raise rent via capital investments in the property. My landlord installed a new boiler and raised rents across the board by $100. So again, he's just lying. Also, again, so he lies about a policy. He doesn't understand it. He doesn't understand that rent control exists and works in cities around the world. And he has a dim understanding of how real development even occurs.
that was more complex than I wanted to go. I want to be very simple with the banana analogy, because I think most people can imagine, they can understand why you would go all apples there. They can just get that. Rent freezes aren't permanent. Yeah, I'll explain this too. I have another example. Imagine I have a Ziploc bag. I have a Ziploc bag full of Skittles. And you know these are Skittles. It's not like they're not a drug or anything. They're just Skittles. How much do I have to pay you to reach in there and eat a Skittle? How much? $0? Yeah. Usually most people will say 0 or very low, almost nothing. What if I tell you that one of the Skittles is poison? How much is your cost, Go? What will you charge me if one of them is poison? Free I love gambling? I'll pay you? Okay, I forgot.
Every single one of his examples are brain dead bullshit. And honestly, I gotta say, you gotta be low IQ to watch this shit. Like, you gotta be low IQ to watch this shit. Guys, this is embarrassing. Come on. Imagine if we were living on a place and everyone had $2, and imagine you were eating a Skittle and one of them was poison. What are you talking about, dullard? Can you make a fucking point that's related to actual policy?
How many Zoomers want to kill themselves? Okay. Generally, the presence of a really bad outcome increases the cost dramatically. So people would charge like $1 million, or, you know, they would go 100,000. They want a lot of return to compensate for the fact that things could go really wrong. What studies have shown is, listen, the way building an apartment.
Guys, studies have shown. Are there people who, now, if you're just saying rent control alone, is that a good policy? No, I don't think rent control alone is a good policy. But rent control is about balancing other factors, right? We're balancing other factors. We're preventing windfall profits from accumulating in the landlord class. And we could react to things like, because we're still gonna, like, Vienna doesn't have a completely decommodified housing market. They have a strong social and public housing market, and they have a free market for high-end real estate. If you want a high-end property and you want to pay 5,000 euros a month on a fucking penthouse or some house, you're allowed to go do that. And so because they have that safety valve of some sort of a market for high-end, high-margin production, it still exists. And then there is a private market for people that are new to Vienna. And you know what you find is that the people new to Vienna, the private rental market for lower tier shit is actually really cheap too, because it has to compete against all the other subsidized dwellings. So you don't see this cliff where it's like, oh, housing that's subsidized, and then free market. It's actually housing, and there is a still existing low end market. I could go and look at Vienna housing right now and find 1,000, 2,000 euro apartments in the middle of the city. There are cheap, and that's what Atrioc doesn't understand. It's because the world is different than whatever orbs he imagines it to be. There is only so much demand to live in Vienna. That demand is controlled by a lot of factors, and therefore it is possible to project housing need and to develop over time a consistent supply. And if that supply starts to get below what's needed, you can raise the supply. But because you're doing a secular government provided and socially provided housing sector, there is a lot less fluctuation. There's a lot less turbulence. There is a lot more supplying housing as a human right. And why is housing something that I think this should be done for? Because it's a necessity. You have to have housing or you will die. So it's a government responsibility to provide high quality housing for everybody. And if you're going to raise the standard of living of people, you raise the standard of their housing. That's why Vienna works, because they see housing as a human right, not a good like Skittles or apples. If apple prices go up too much, I could go buy a pear. If housing prices go up too much, I fucking die. And that's exactly the type of market where the government should step in first.
Building goes is usually not Scrooge McDuck owns 100 buildings already. Usually someone takes out a $20 million plus loan to build a building. And when they take out the loan, they make some kind of math to make that work. So they go, okay, it'll have 18 rooms. Each room has $1,000 a month rent. I can raise that 4% every 2 years. It maths out, so I'll get my money back in 17 years. And then it's profit, okay? That's the plan they have when they build it. But in an environment where there's constant off and on freezes or rent control, they can no longer do this math. The risk of them being underwater on the mortgage goes way up, having to walk away from it. So now they have to plan for that in, and the cost of penciling out the building they constructed goes way up. So the building stops. So the presence of rent control stops the production of new buildings because they can no longer reliably math out when they will get their money back. This is like what
Yay, chat. This is the first time he's tried to do this. And this is why he doesn't do it much. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I got him. I got him for he finally tried. Okay, first of all, notice that he's not really connecting it to a real place in the real world. He's doing still hypotheticals, which is fine. We can work with this. The $20 million is not fixed. First of all, there is land that exists. The government has what's known as eminent domain powers, which means that the government can seize land. The government can seize land, and they have to pay what's, quote, fair market value for seizing land. Whatever the fuck that means. It means nothing. They can pay whatever they want. The government has the ability to knock down this cost because the government could also borrow money cheaper than a private developer can. So the government can borrow at 3%. He borrows at 7%. The costs for the government are going to be a lot lower. So first of all, this $20 million could decrease because the government could get land cheaper and it could borrow money cheaper. That's why government provided housing can keep rents lower. The second thing is, and this is the even more important thing, this investment that Atriarch is talking about has to compete with every other investment on the entire planet. Congratulations, globalism. So the only way private developers are going to do these developments is if that investment is more profitable than any other investment they could make with that money on the entire surface of the globe. Do you think that's going to result in enough housing being produced? Do you think that's going to, just think for a second, ponder for a second. This $20 million has to be more profitable than any other investment on the fuck. Do you understand how it's completely stupid? And that housing only happens in situations where rent is rising completely out of control and the profitability is so high. They're never going to produce housing for working class people and middle class people at this price point, unless there's some sort of, we could get into all sorts of ways that developers make money. I'm going to tell you the secrets. They get things like tax subsidies. They get to buy land for cheap because of relationships they have with local politicians. They do stuff called regulatory arbitrage, where I buy a plot of land that's zoned for rural, for rural areas, and then I bribe the local zoning control board to give me a variance, and then they say I can now build apartment buildings on it. So rural land is valued at $10 an acre, but because I got the zoning ordinance, it's now valued at $300 an acre. So I just made massive land speculation profit. That's called regulatory arbitrage. That's how developers actually make money. It's called corruption. Okay? Anyway, Atriarch, he doesn't know any of this shit because he doesn't actually engage with public policy in more than a hypothetical, paint level. So when does this housing stuff pencil out? Well, the answer is high-end real estate, high-end housing, because there's a lot of margin. If I build penthouse fucking apartment building and I charge you $10 million to live in it, the construction materials of that apartment building are going to be $1 million. Okay? Because it's got so much margin, I'm able to do it profitably. That's why you see so much high end. That's why most construction is luxury construction, because luxury equals margin. It's why American car manufacturers make pickup trucks, because they're high margin. It doesn't cost $80,000 to build a Ford F-150. That's why they build it. They don't like to build the econo boxes because they have low margins. Low margins equals less profit. And so, like, building housing that would be affordable for a person who makes minimum wage is not going to pencil out. So what he's basically saying is housing should only be provided if it's profitable to the capitalist class. If you think that housing should only be provided to you if it's profitable to the capitalist class, vote for Atrioc and Gavin Newsom. Watch them. If you think housing is a human right and you want to live in the most livable city in the fucking world, if you want to live in a city where everybody has a high quality house or apartment building as a human fucking right, and it results in your city being ranked the most livable city in the fucking world, vote for me. Watch me. That's the battle. That's the fight. And he's not on our side, not even a little bit.
This is like what happens in the real, this is in practice, what happens. If Mamdani can get 200,000 units built like he plans. Okay, so yes, this. First of all, I deeply support this. Yeah, building more is the #1 thing we got to do in places like New York. There's just an undersupply of buildings, right? So you want more. I think this is great.
Why is there an undersupply? The market, how dare you question the market, you fucking, how dare you? The market is supplying exactly what the market wants to supply. How dare you question it? Sounds awfully leftist of you.
Right. However, my example was with working out and smoking. I think just work out. I think just build the units. You will see the results. If we build a lot more units in New York, the price will come down. I know that.
Except they can't build them because they're not making money. You just said that they need to be able to raise the rent in order to pencil out the profit. Atrioc, you just said that they need an environment of rising rents. So wait, we're going to build a bunch of housing when profit's going down? It doesn't make sense. Your own argument doesn't make sense. Basically just say this: we need the rents to keep going up so that profit can be given to the landlords and developers. And if you can't afford to live in an environment of rising rents, then leave or live in a tent. That's what he wants. That's what he's arguing for. I think even in the back of his mind, the cognitive dissonance in this image, in this moment, the cognitive dissonance is kicking in. The cognitive dissonance and like the incoherence of his own point is starting to kind of like, it's starting to, maybe there's a light behind his eyes that's triggering. So he's going to rush ahead here.
That'll happen because it's happened everywhere they've done that. Japan has no rent control, but they have zoning laws that allow you to build more, and they have
rent. Okay, in Japan, fucking amazing. He's saying Japan. In Japan, first of all, the quality and the size of housing is dog shit. That's #1. #2, housing depreciates in Japan, and #3, their population is collapsing. Their population is absolutely collapsing. Housing is not an asset like it is in America. It depreciates. It goes down in value over time. Like, what?
Lower costs. Austin, Houston, Dallas, like other cities have.
Austin has seen, Texas has seen in-migration fall off a cliff. And a lot of these housing construction, a lot of the housing that was built in Austin was built during COVID, or the money was borrowed during COVID when we were at 0% interest. So the cost of housing construction was low. But now they stopped building. Because why? Rents stopped going up. This is like, and Austin, and by the way, people are leaving Austin because they realized, oh fuck, I'm living in Texas. It actually sucks. Texas in-migration is fucking collapsing. Travis County, which is where Austin is seeing its population decline. Here is the Federal Reserve. Thank you, Vio. Vio has brought me food, chat. Vio has brought me lunch. Penne. We've got the kielbasa. We're on the kielbasa train, chat. I'm getting a lot of kielbasa lately. We have a lot of kielbasa and shrimp because we're getting a lot of different ways of having kielbasa and shrimp. Immigration crackdown likely contributing to weak Texas job growth. So there is international migration has fallen off a cliff to Texas, and in-migration, meaning people moving from other states to Texas, has fallen off a cliff. He's like, Austin, it's working so well. For the first time in 20 years, more people are leaving Travis County than moving in. What happened was, first of all, Texas is some of the shittiest land on the fucking planet. So the land value is nil. And They just a lot of sprawl. I don't know if you've ever been to Texas. So they're not constrained geographically. The land value is 0. And the interest rates were 0%. So you had a short period of time where a bunch of housing got built for Austin. Guess what's happening now? More people saying goodbye than hello to Travis County. So Austin prices are down because the demand has fallen off a cliff. People still want to move to LA. Okay, people are desperate to move to LA. Everybody wants to live in Southern Cal. I mean, not everyone, but Southern California is the most desirable place in America. Right now, it's 61 degrees outside in Los Angeles, California on December 30th. Hold on, I'm looking for another, and I'm going to give you an example. Did you know that the construction permits for apartment buildings in 2025 have collapsed 97%? Nobody is taking out permits to build multifamily apartments in Austin anymore because it's not the zoning, guys. It's because rents are not going up because people aren't moving there anymore. So the developers are saying, fuck this. Interest rates are up. I can't raise the rent. I'm done building. And that's the problem. Rents are still higher now than they were before the pandemic. A steep drop in apartment permits just reset the Austin housing forecast. In August 2025, permits for 5+ unit buildings collapsed to just 41. That's a 97.4% year-over-year decline and a 95.6% shortfall versus the long-term August average, signaling a sudden freeze in the multifamily pipeline. Did Donald Trump come in and do a bunch of housing did they do a bunch of zoning changes? And did Donald Trump go to Austin and say, we're zoning this all single family? Or what happened is they can't raise rents all the time and everyone's leaving Austin. The Atrioc model is stupid and it will not fix the housing crisis in America. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
More flexible zoning and they get more buildings and the rents don't rise the way they do. So, okay, that's the first thing. But the second thing I'm worried about in that situation, 200,000 units over 10 years is really small. It's like really, really small. Like that's 20,000 units a year on average, which,
by the way, chat, I think the private market produced 30 something thousand of units last year, all private activity in New York City. This would be raising the production of apartments by like 50%.
is like what New York builds in the slowest years. That's not enough. I would say drop the rent freeze, triple the amount of social housing if you're gonna build housing. Like that works way better. And unrestricted zoning. When people say they want more flexible zonings, what are some examples? That's a great question. I love that question. Zoning is essentially, there'll be a city block, right? So you might have like an area of the city and almost like you're playing Sim City, right? Certain parts are zoned for certain things because people don't want to have a house next to like an industrial waste plant. They zone.
All right, so this is the chart that you'll see from every YIMBY like Atrioc about Austin. So this was the housing market before the pandemic, 12-19. Then housing prices absolutely skyrocketed because everybody moved to Austin because they were working from home. And they were like, Austin's kind of a blue dot. It is like Texas is Portland. That's a nice place to move. And so everyone fled to Austin because they could get a lot more house because they were, pandemic fucking stuck in their house. So you saw a 50% increase in housing costs. And then a bunch of developers, because interest rates were 0% and land is basically $0, threw up a bunch of multifamily. They all started building multifamily apartments because they thought, holy shit, look at these rents. So the Atrioc model of housing is Austin. Well, they're no longer building anymore, but rent is still, if you lived in Austin before the pandemic, you're paying $200 more a month in rent. You're paying 15%, between 10 and 50% more for your same apartment than you were before this whole housing bubble. So that's YIMBYism in a nutshell, chat. YIMBYism in a nutshell is, look, guys, rents are falling. Just forget the part where they raised double. I'm sorry, what up 50%? Forget the part where they were up 50%. Just look at, guys, don't look at the beginning of the chart. Only look at this part of the chart. Guys, only look at this part of the chart. YIMBYism works. Yay! YIMBYism works. Don't look at any of the context. Don't look at any of reality. Just look at this. And that is the problem. And what's going to happen in Austin is the supply is going to dry up. Or maybe people will keep leaving Texas because it sucks. Who knows? I'm not denying supply and demand. In fact, my model is the only one that actually understands supply and demand of housing with any level of sophistication. That's why the Viennese model works, because they don't allow only housing construction only happens when it's super profitable for developers. Housing construction happens every year because they look at the population growth and they say, we need to build more housing for the new population growth, and we're going to keep rent cheap for everyone. We're going to keep building high quality housing. Population starts to decline, they could slow down the amount of new construction they build. But it is a secular construction, whether the economy is booming for construction or it's declining for construction. They do it based on population growth and projections. And that's why everybody in Vienna has a nice apartment. They're not relying on the profitability of Elon Musk. And this is why Atriarch's thoughts about these issues are childish. What's wrong with America is we haven't built any public housing since 2000. And when we stopped building public housing or new public housing, because there's something called the Faircloth Amendment, which Bill Clinton signed into law saying you're not allowed to build government-owned social public housing anymore. Everything has to be housing vouchers because the market can provide housing better than the government. So here's a housing voucher. That's what they call demand subsidy. That's an Atriarch centrist, market-obsessed liberal idea, and it failed completely. And housing has been unaffordable since.
It so like you can only build residential housing here, and you can only build industrial factories here, and you can only build a public school here or whatever. That's the idea of zoning.
Atriarch wants them to build a fucking coal plant next to your house.
Right? The problem is so much of the housing area in cities is restricted to only like a single family home, a single plot for, you know, one family that takes up a large area. There's no zoning.
By the way, Chad, this isn't even true in Los Angeles or California anymore. They passed all these dumb policies. And guess what? It didn't fix any of the things that I was saying before. It did not fix the housing costs. Atriarch, it didn't fix the housing costs, my friend. Because we're talking about cost of land, we're talking about cost of materials, labor, and financing costs. Those are the major drivers of the cost of housing. So only the government can constrain any of those factors. The government can very successfully constrain land acquisition costs, and it can very easily constrain financing costs because it can borrow at lower interest rates than corporations can. So it can build cheaper housing.
Like an apartment building that can have a lot of people and be affordable. They don't zone that anywhere. You can't find any spot to build that. You can't even build a double family home. And the reason they do that is because if you live in a single family home right here and someone builds an apartment building right here, the value of your home goes down because it's ugly and poor people might live there. That's the idea. Someone poor might live near you and that'll bring the value of your home down. This is called NIMBYism. I'm just making it very simple. This is like what's happens. Every other thing people say, they say, oh, greedy landlords. They say, oh, we need rent control. Oh, we gotta stop Airbnb. All this stuff, first of all, the first part is just not true. But the second part is like so minor. The real truth of it is it's zoning. Zoning is like 90% of the problem in most cities because you just cannot build the apartments.
This is actually an economically illiterate opinion. This is an economically illiterate opinion. And I'll explain to you why it's economically illiterate by using an anecdote, because Atriarch likes anecdotes. Right now in LA, in downtown LA, there is the abandoned graffiti building in LA. Okay, thank you. There is a high-rise tower that was 90-some% done that is now just abandoned. Do you think it's not zoned for dense housing? You don't think like, why is it abandoned? Because guys, it's not 99% zoning. What the fuck are you talking about, man? It's because the financing costs are too expensive. And so the company went belly up. You have to be insane to think that it has zoning that prevents growth. And that's the only thing that prevents growth. And by the way, I'm not saying we shouldn't do zoning changes. I personally think we should. But that's not what's actually going to get housing constructed. And I think that telling people that's what it is just lying. And it makes people support policies that are not going to become true. So when we pass the zoning changes and it doesn't fix the housing market, what's Atriarch going to say next? Is he going to have credibility with you? We're going to waste the left-wing backlash to Donald Trump by proposing a policy that won't work? We're going to spend the time that we have in power doing minor policies that won't work while we have the policies that do work on the shelf? What's wrong with you? Doesn't make any sense.
people are demanding. You can't do it. It's illegal. There's no spot for them. I mean, there are greedy landlords. Everyone is greedy. Let me ask you a simple question. This is an honest question.
No, we're not. You're greedy. You're greedy. Not everyone. You are. Now listen, I want to live a good life. When I have a good income, I'm not sitting there going, how do I get more? How do I get more? How do I get more? I don't. I stop focusing on making money and I start working on other things that I like to do. I'll go play video games. I go out to eat, spend more time with my family. I don't sit there and go, how do I get more money? How do I get more money? There are other things in life for me. Now, I need a certain amount of money so that I need to be at least well-to-do so I could be secure in my life. But not everybody is greedy. Greedy, does he not know what greedy means? I mean, like, there's a difference between self-interest and greed. I want to have a good life. That is true. But it doesn't mean that I want to be a billionaire. It doesn't mean that I want to take away from you and have you live a shitty life so that I can have more. That's what greed is. It's when I have all that I need and more, and I'll take more while you live in poverty. That's greed. Not everybody's like that.
I want you to answer this. Why?
In fact, most people aren't like that.
Do you think McDonald's is a greedy company? I do. The people that own McDonald's don't care about me. They're a greedy company that are profit driven. Why does McDonald's not charge $100 for a burger? Because they're stupid? No, it's very simple. It's because no one would buy it. Because if they asked $100 for a burger, I would laugh and I would go somewhere else. I would go to Burger King or I would go to Wendy's. They're greedy enough. They're very greedy. They would like to charge $100 for a burger. If they could get away with it, they could, but they can't because I can go somewhere else. That is the true economic freedom of competition. In every market, you want the customer to be able to say, F you and go somewhere else. What you want with housing is for a lot of competition to be built so that no matter how greedy the landlord is, they cannot charge you the equivalent of a $100 burger because you can go.
Oh, okay. I see why Atrioc doesn't understand reality. He thinks housing is like burgers. He thinks that housing is like a perfectly like a commodity that could be easily. Do you understand how different a burger is from a house? It's actually embarrassingly. First of all, burger is in the category of food, which means there are many substitutes. I could eat something else. Housing, there is no substitute to having housing. You die. It's a medical necessity. Another way of a better analogy would be cancer treatment for the cancer you have. If the cancer treatment for the cancer you have and they come up and say it's $100,000, do you know what you do? You pay them $100,000 because you can't say fuck you because there may not be any competition. That is the situation of housing, is that there's a long lag time to building housing. The costs of housing are extremely high. And our economy is built around subsidizing land speculation, meaning we want land values to keep going up. So in order for you to build housing, you have to pay off a land speculator, which is a huge deadweight loss. That's the crisis that we have, is that land speculators are incentivized to do nothing with land. And our banking system is structured upon land loans. So the value of land declines, it imperils our financial system. That's the crisis that we're stuck in. Also, like, if I have a job in LA, I have to live close enough to LA in order to access my job, which means there's a maximum ring that I'd be willing to live in. So which means there is a limited amount of parcels. There's a limited amount of places for me to live in. So that tends towards monopolistic pricing, not competitive pricing. At least in America, it's not. Whereas in the Vienna model, it is. It is more competitive because the government is driving the cost of housing closer to the raw costs of housing. Housing prices are extremely competitive. You have to offer supreme value add in order to justify charging higher. So as the government drives the cost of housing toward the raw cost, housing remains cheap. Whereas in the Atrioc model, land speculation value drives up the cost of housing. That's why if you go to LA, you'll see places that rent for thousands of dollars that look like shit. That's not because, I mean, that's reality. Whereas in Vienna, you'll go and look at places that are really nice and they rent for 500 euros. Why is there a difference there? It's because of land speculation. The land speculation value is accruing and you're paying those costs.
somewhere else. That is why competition works, because it gives you, the consumer, the ability to say, I'll go down the street, I'll go somewhere else. How do you stop homeowners and landlords from voting you out when you vote for high density housing? That's the age-old question of our times, brother. The problem is the people that don't have housing don't vote at the same rate as the people that have already climbed the ladder and want to kick it down. That's the problem, brother. I don't have a great solution for you. But I think if we start by education, if we can start to get people to understand this stuff, I think we can advocate for the solutions that help regular people, that truly proven to work, help regular people. Steph Curry's still voting no.
What is he talking about? What are you talking about? He's like, guys, it's really cheap to build in Dallas on sprawling. They have no regulations, so they let people build on floodplains. That's how we're going to solve LA's housing market. We should repeal the seismic regulations. Let them build houses in apartment buildings that'll collapse during the next earthquake. That'll lower the price of housing.
Oh, amen. NIMBY ass Steph Curry still voting no, bro.
I'm sorry, I didn't intend to make an Atrioc hate stream, but his politics are basically, if Atrioc is a successful political commentator, America will fall to fascism, because he is advocating for policies that are going to lead to Tucker Carlson becoming president, because there is going to be a thermostatic effect. There is a rejection of Donald Trump, and it's likely that we're going to have a Democratic president and Congress in 2028. And the type of politicians that we get elected in that time are going to determine whether or not Tucker Carlson and fascism continues to grow worldwide, or if social democracy and socialism grows worldwide. That is the reality. Either we start proposing radical change that will actually measurably improve people's lives, and that's going to involve a lot of taxation of the rich, like Atrioc. Atrioc is going to have to pay a lot more in taxes. And he's going to have to pay for you to have nice, high quality housing if we're going to fix America. All right. We need to target people like Atrioc for expropriation. That's where we take a lot of their wealth. And that's my goal. My politics are make Atrioc pay. Make Gavin Newsom pay. Make Nancy Pelosi pay. Make Donald Trump pay. Make JD Vance pay. Make Elon Musk pay. Make Jeff Bezos pay. That's my politics. And unless that politics gets out, unless we are willing to fight back against this type of liberalism, we're fucking cooked. I almost want to watch the podcast clip.
Housing policy because of this.
You're
And
back.
in preparation for talking about this, I spoke to a couple friends that live in Vienna and got their breakdown and like perspective of how this actually functions. And then also, generally did research on this topic. Sure. But the idea is that because so much of the housing offered is publicly owned and not run with the profit incentive in mind, and because it takes up so much of the market, the remaining private sector of the market, which is allowed to exist, has to compete with the public housing available. And they continue to build public housing now. And the share of public housing over time has remained pretty consistent. It's shifted a little more private in recent years, but the split between the two public options and the private options is remained pretty even for a long time. And when you look at other cities with cost of living or housing crises, a good example is Vancouver. They've introduced public housing projects like this before. But the issue is that when you're starting from square one and very little of your housing is public to begin with, any nice building that you offer up at a way lower price than market that is equal quality to the rest of the housing being built, well, it's going to be snatched up right away. A bunch of people are going to apply and get those slots immediately, right? And you don't really solve the problem in the rest of the market with the rest of the market's housing being expensive, because you need enough control over the market and enough
That's
available.
where the rent control comes in. That's where the rent control comes in. And that's where, yes, you have to build a lot more than the small amount that's being built in Vancouver. You have to build tens of thousands of units, and you have to make it clear that you're going to continue to build tens of thousands of units. It can't just be farting around the edges. It has to be a national project. That's why we need the presidency. We need social housing being built in every major U.S. city.
Units to compete against the private ones to be able to suppress the price. And they have managed to do this super successfully for a long time. the socialist party that introduced this policy, is under fire more recently for something related to this, but has been in power in Vienna for a long time, and they were who introduced this policy.
For a long time, the entire history of Vienna, since they had elections.
I also want to add that talking to one of my friends, you know how it branches down into 3 different types of housing, basically: public, semi-public, private. He said there's a secret 4th option that a lot of people go
like
with.
an In-N-Out secret item menu.
I was intrigued, and I said, you get the house animal style.
They covered in chili.
And then they
Floor to
knock $200 off your rent. But he said that the other common way a lot of people get cheap rentals in Vienna is just by knowing people. And he said your homey way into private renting is actually the cheapest option of them all. And he listed off himself, his girlfriend, and a bunch
This is called subletting. This exists in every city. This is called subletting. This exists in every city. Like, we all do this. Fuck, I know I have friends of mine that live in relatives' built houses that they pay less than the market value because they know it. They know the person. That's called subletting, bro.
Other people he knew as examples of, I just met someone through a friend or through a family member and then got my rental through them. And then because we could dodge all the agency and paperwork aspect of all of the other options, but specifically the private option, you could get the place at a way lower price and you're way less likely to be gouged. So there was this secret
And Austria talking about being gouged is so funny. Austrians are actually on the subject of housing. They're actually, like, if they don't study public policy and they're just like a Viennese person, they actually have no idea what housing is actually like. And it's very funny. It's very, very, very funny. This is just people not using professionals to make leases and therefore not having to pay the professional fees, which in America would be nothing compared to the actual cost of the renting the apartment because our apartment rents are so high. But in Austria, having a professional work for a couple hours is a lot to the rent because the rent is so cheap. So you're saving like 5-10% because you're not having a professional do the work. But in America, you know, when you rent an apartment through a real estate agent, they get a month's rent as their commission. Like, that's frequently how it goes.
private option where you avoid all the paperwork. Also interesting is prices have actually started to climb at a way higher rate in the last couple years. And the reasoning, as explained to me, they have these agencies that sell or introduce people to homes. So these private agencies, if you're looking for private housing, they'll be the guiding light to like finding you an apartment in Vienna, give you like private options that you could potentially rent, right? And that process apparently takes a long time, which is one of the reasons why you might find your homey option instead, because it's just more straightforward. But the prices of that, you paid the agency a fee as the person looking for an apartment. You pay them a fee to like help you find a place to stay. That fee 2-3 years ago, a policy was passed that fee onto the landlord. And this is the policy that has backfired on the Socialist Party that has the largest share of seats in Vienna. The agencies and the landlords have basically started colluding because they can privately negotiate what this price is and then tack it onto the rent after with no interaction from the renters, has started raising average rental prices at a way higher rate than they ever have in past years. There's a couple other reasons why rents have gone up as well, but this policy has totally backfired because of the ways the agencies and the landlords have been able to gouge that specific fee out of people looking for private rentals. This just gives you a little like landscape of what housing is like. I can answer.
Have you noticed that there's no discussion of the actual cost?
Like more specific questions if you have them, but because of the time we have left, I know you had specific pushback to.
You were saying you don't want people to have affordable housing.
That's
You did say that.
I was saying that off pod, and I want to say it on pod because I'm in the villain chair. I don't think people should be able to live. No, listen.
But if I were here, I'll give a synthesized kind of. Because like I said, there's a lot of details that I dug into with both the people I interviewed and the research into this topic. But the synthesized point I want to make here is because we could say that because of this city's approach to housing and the amount of public housing that competes against the private market. And important to note, they've kept building public housing along the way. So you can't just like have a static, quantity and then not do anything about it after. That competition from the public option that has no profit incentive is a huge part of what has kept rents low and in control in Vienna for a long, long time. So I'm curious what you guys have to say about it.
What I want to say is I'm going to go slightly free market, bro, on this one.
Yeah.
Villain!
Yes.
Villain!
Slightly. And this is one area, like, I've talked about this before. Like, I'll watch a Bernie Sanders speech. I fucking love the guy. I'm cheering for him. And then he says something about rent control. And I'm like, because I've lived through, I've had a rent control apartment. I've seen the experience firsthand. I've seen apartments without it. I've looked into it a lot. And over what I've found, to me, it feels like a kink in the hose of supply and demand that causes pain to a lot of people outside of it. A few people benefit, but a lot of people are hurt. And this is sort of somewhat in that. So I want to try to explain. I hear Vienna brought up a lot. And just to overview what happened, I think you said this pretty well, but the idea is, Vienna was the capital of Austria-Hungary, big populous city, had 2.3.
Good day, mate. Shrimp on the barbie.
He gets it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Quarter of the world.
Had 2.3 million people in 1916. Obviously, Austria-Hungary had a problem in 2 different wars. Pretty bad problem. Things went to shit. Country devastated.
People
Vienna
were turned into Vienna sausages.
Yes, exactly. And so we flash forward 100 years later, and they are at about the same level of population, 2 million. So
Okay, so obviously this is just what we call a moron. I don't know what else to say. I don't know what else to say. Population of 1900 of 2 million. The population dipped to 1.5 million. It's been one of the fastest growing cities in Europe since 1980. And I don't know if you know this, but the type of housing people thought acceptable in 1910 is a lot different than what we think is acceptable in 2025. Okay, do you understand that? So this is just nonsense. I mean, it's just nonsense. It's nonsense. And I can tell you right now, Pittsburgh used to have a population of 1 million. It used to have a population of 1 million. Now it's at 300,000. Let me see if I can get a population chart. I'm sorry, not 1 million, 700,000. So Pittsburgh's population declined from 676,000 to 300,000. Do you think rent has stayed the same? Why is it so small? Here's Pittsburgh's rent. Annual rent growth percentage. Here's in downtown Pittsburgh, which is one of the cheapest places in the country. It's growing really fast. It's fucking weird. Gosh, for the past 20 years, the rent in Pittsburgh has been rising really fast. The only time the rent in Pittsburgh went down was during the Great Recession, and then a short period during COVID. And then the bars, you use the right side of the chart. The market rent is the line, okay? And that's the left side of the chart, just to explain, rent per unit. Look at the annual rent growth percentage rates. We're almost 8%. The population of Pittsburgh has declined by 50%. So what the fuck is Atrioc talking about? This is actually a dumb point for dummies. And wait, do you think Vienna, Austria, 1919, after they lost the war and their empire was imploded, they had a lot of high quality housing that they've sat on? What the fuck is he talking? He's actually stupid. This is his big debate point? Is the population used to be a 2 million, but now it's 2 million again after raising by 500,000 in 40 years? That's his point.
Again, a housing problem is much easier to solve when your population barely grows or barely changes in 100 years. When it's mostly flat.
I mean, he's a moron. I'm sorry, chat. Like, I was being nice before, but he's actually an idiot. Do you think the housing supply... First of all, housing does not last 100 years. It depreciates like everything else. And the quality and what we expected housing has gone up. They didn't have widespread electric light and indoor plumbing in 1919. Now we do. Now we have the internet. Now we have heating and cooling systems. Now, the space that we demand inside our housing has expanded. We need more space in our apartments. We have in-suite kitchens and bathrooms. We used to have communal bathrooms and communal kitchens in apartments. He actually knows nothing, like literally nothing.
The problems that you might have in like a SF Bay Area where a lot of people are trying to get in at once aren't as apparent. what they did was
Again,
that I think
population grew by 500,000 in the last 40 years. He cherry picked, and that's really all it is as you can see, the economy of Vienna was declining quite a bit until 1981, and it's been exploding since. What would you say to about a city whose population has gone up this much? Would you say that this is like what? In the same time, Seattle, Washington's population went from 500,000 to 780,000. That's roughly the same growth rate of going from 1.5 million to 2 million, 500,000 to 750,000. That's roughly the same growth rate. How is Seattle's rent? I can't even find something that goes back that far. Let's just go back to 1997. Rent prices in Seattle have tripled, and this is since what we okay. That's just going to 2017. Okay, I found it. I'm trying to find the rent for today. Seattle rent right now is let me get a Zillow just so we can say what Zillow Seattle rent price looks like. It's let's see here. It's somewhere around 2,000 because there's been a big cooling in the market over the last year. This is weird. Okay, Seattle's market has fallen off a cliff. I live in Everett, Washington, near Boeing, and they have 10x'd. I read it for 600 around 2004. It's now 2K a month. Yeah. And so what I'm trying to tell you is Atrioc, he's cherry picking. He's like, oh, guys, it used to have 2 million people in 1900. That means that it's just been flat. That's not true. That's just lying. Because I can tell you, I'll show you a place. Oh, this is so funny. Such a fucking fraud. He's such a fucking fraud. Let's talk about Berlin's population, shall we? Guys, it was 4 million in 1925. The population of Berlin is now 3.5 million. It's smaller than it was in 1925. So the rent is probably, the rents are cheap in Berlin, right? This is a subhuman argument. This is a Twitter level subhuman argument. I don't know what else to say. Like I had no respect for Atrioc, but now that I see that he's this much of a propagandist ideologue, and this is an ideologue behavior, by the way. This is ideologue behavior. This is a guy who is a liar. Say shit like this unless you're a fraud.
Deserves commendation is not whether the house was socialized, whether the house was rent controlled, it's that they built fucking houses. They built a lot of them. When you really look into this policy, the thing that differentiates it from other cities is that they said every time we add a new block or a new area, we're going to set aside some area that has to be used for building housing. And it has to be dense housing, dense socialized housing. Whether that housing is socialized or not, it is zoned for dense, affordable housing.
The guys who believe it's zoning are actually dumber than dirt. And this is why the YIMBY movement is stupid and why I oppose it. Because you get guys like this. The reason why they built housing is because they set a 0.5% income tax, and then they had the government build housing directly. They didn't zone it and go, please, if it's profitable, capitalist sir, please, will you build us some apartments, please, sir? As long as you make millions, okay? Will you please make millions of dollars to provide the peasants housing, capitalist sir? Oh, please. That's what they did not do. Okay, that's what you're saying we should do. And I want you to know it's been tried before. Do you think housing was super high quality before we had zoning? Do you think housing in America was super high quality before we had zoning? I'm gonna give you a hint. The answer is no.
So it gets built. Mm-hmm. In actuality, so I did some research for this, and I wanted to see what to your credit, like I didn't expect you to bring up so many points from people that live there, the good and the bad.
Yeah.
So I don't need to bring all this up, but I wanted to look at what actual people that live in Vienna are saying. And I tried to find comments that people are very positive on the city, except for a certain thing about rent. So I brought a couple of them up. This guy has a ton list of pros. He loves the city, but he mentions that cheap housing is kind of a lie. There's a lot of public housing, but to qualify at all, you need to have lived 2 years in Vienna. I think you know this as well, right?
Yeah.
You can't get it if you haven't been there 2 years. So if you're a new student that moves to Vienna, your options are only private housing. And actually, the private housing is rather expensive. It's actually gotten to the level of like Berlin and other major cities. If you're there.
Do I even need to speak? This is what propaganda looks like, because this is the most important empirical point he's making, and he has no sources and no evidence. He's just saying stuff. He's kind of hand waving at an argument that's actually not true, and he knows it's not true, but he's lying. And by the way, having to live in a city 2 years before you have a guaranteed high quality social housing unit for life is not that big of a hurdle. And the private market is inexpensive.
For 2 years, you can apply to get on a list to wait in a waiting line to get one in socialized housing. But there's a difference between the good socialized housing and some of the more not as good. And generally what happens is to get the good stuff, you have to know somebody. You have to have an in. You have to know a politician or somebody that already has one and wants to sublet it out to you. So it becomes a game of who you know rather than any ability of you to buy it yourself. For example, he says, the good ones never go vacant. If you don't have these connections, you get a cheap flat with cardboard walls. You have to rely on private market, which is on par with other big European cities. Rent for apartments are pretty steep, especially for newcomers because they don't qualify for social housing. Basically, this ends up being is a subsidy for a few people that punishes anyone who is.
By the way, subsidy for a few people, he means the vast majority of the population. He means 60% of the population that lives in social public housing. That's what he means by a few people. And he's saying we should blow up the most successful housing program in the entire world because people that come into Vienna have to live in the private market for a couple years and replace it with the private market for all. Man, the private market really sucks. It's really expensive. That's why everybody should be in the private market. You are a fraud, Atrioc. You are a fraud. Are you a landlord? Atrioc, are you a landlord? Be honest. Do you invest in landlords? Are you a landlord and do you invest in landlords?
New or moving to the city. And it creates these weird externalities that I've seen with rent-controlled apartments, even the ones that I've lived in, where people that have, maybe they get a better job, maybe they have an opportunity somewhere that they cannot leave for because the subsidy they have for the rent control now makes it so that they can't, the deal is too good to leave to go anywhere else. So it kind of clamps down on normal economic movement. It clamps down on the ability for new people to flood into the city and enjoy it. It sort of stagnates. It kind of locks you in time.
That's not the case, Chad. You can exchange social housing for another person's social housing. There's a social housing exchange. You can make trades. You can move around. That's just not true. He's lying again.
I think we all know, as you can say from your open source model or from this example for anything, is when you have a lot of competition, the price goes down. And I fully agree with that. And I think if this is the way you have to do it, it's better than what we're doing in the Bay Area where there's just nothing happening. But I think the negative externalities, like for a good example, again, is because the government is the largest landlord, they own almost all the houses in the city. They've done a pretty bad, outside of the rent being low, they've done a terrible job at it in terms of like, there's many loud, vociferous complaints about trying to get anything fixed.
That's just not true. That's just not true. That's just a complete lie. He's just lying. And by the way, have you rented from anyone ever in real life? He's such a fraud. You're a fucking liar, Atrioc. Source
in fact,
his
you
ass.
generally have to factor in the cost of doing the repairs yourself. The time it takes is so long. The lag time of getting anything fixed is so long that you have to pay for it yourself. And when you add that into your rent cost, it makes it more even with other places. So my idea is like simply, whatever way you got to do it, if we're making areas zoned for, the demand is there. People want to live in these parts of the city or they want to live close to the city center at an affordable rate. Mm-hmm. People want it. If you make it so that's allowed to be built, someone will build it to take advantage of that opportunity and they will sell it. I think their big win, the big takeaway is just the great zoning and not really so much that the government has to make and build and decide what the houses look like, where they are. We're going to run your landlord. We're going to do, I think that's the area where I feel like is overstated.
He's just point blank lying. He's a fraud. He's a fraud. Vienna's quality of life is number one. The social housing is high quality. He's just lying. He's just lying. And there are no numbers here. There are no numbers. Let's do a cost of living calculator between Vienna and New York City. The only thing that's more expensive in Vienna is soft drinks. Mobile phone plans, 300% more expensive. Price per square feet to buy an apartment in the city center, 65% cheaper in Vienna. Average salaries, mortgage rates are twice as high in New York. Cost of living is higher than in Vienna. Cost of living, including rent, is higher. Rent prices are higher, 240% higher in New York City than Vienna. Restaurant prices are higher, grocery prices are higher, and local purchasing power is 24% lower than Vienna. Meaning Viennese people have more purchasing power, 25% more than New Yorkers, while their rent is 240% lower. See, these are called numbers.
And the idea that they set the rent price with rent control, again, all that is
I live in Vienna. I can confirm that the social housing system is pretty good here, but it really gets threatened by the private sector since the big liberalization in the 80s and the Gemeingebau stopped in 2004. Yeah, I know. Yuli, thank you for bringing that up. Neoliberalism has tried to come after this system. That is where the struggle is, where people are trying to reintroduce more construction and less private market. They've been trying to push the private market into Vienna, the right wing, and undermine everything you guys have built.
kind of a...
Well, they have, so they do, I don't know if I would call it rent control, but they have an additional policy that applies across everything as far as I understand. I forget the German phrase, but it's basically called the index adjustment, which means that landlords cannot raise prices unless they scale with inflation for the year. And then even then there's a cap on that. So it prevents huge spikes in rent from happening over short periods of. So that's also something that keeps prices low. I think the idea there being that it prevents somebody.
So
like,
that's called rent control. If you control the amount rent can go up, you are controlling the rent. That's called rent control.
a landlord.
Rent control doesn't mean the rent can never go up. It just controls the amount it can go up to prevent windfall profit increases.
Gouging you on the fact that you need to pay for this place to live in. They can't just keep scaling rents at a rate outpaces inflation.
Yeah. Like, okay, let's imagine that you are going to this is Aiden's desert rave. Okay. You're going to go to a big rave party in the desert. And it's going to be awesome. And there's going to be a concert and there's going to be lights and everyone's going to have a good time. And everyone out there is having a good time at the rave in the desert. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And someone brings a bottle of, or a case of Aquafina water to sell because everyone's going to be thirsty. It's going to be it's a sweaty ass rave. And they know that no one else there is selling. So they can offer it for $10 a bottle or $20 a bottle. And it sells out. If the government comes in and says, you have to only charge $2, that's it, is a price cap on it. You cannot raise the price. But the demand is there for $20. Then what usually happens in real life is that they'll say, okay, they'll do it. But then, mysteriously, a crate of water falls off the truck and now it's being sold in the black market because the demand is there. Like, even if you followed the law to the letter, some people get the $2 water in the front, then it's out and it doesn't, you're not saving more people. The same amount of people are getting water, just a better price. So the only...
Okay, here's where Atrioc is a moron. This is called allocation. Let's say that the cost to make water is $1, right? Some people are willing to pay $100 for it. Some people can only pay $2 for it. If you allocate the $2 water to the people that could only afford $2, and then you let the more expensive water be bought by the people who could afford the more expensive water, more people get water who can afford it, as opposed to it being random chance. That's the Vienna housing model, is you allocate high quality social housing that is subsidized by that 0.5% tax. So it's redistribution. They're redistributing wealth in the form of minimum basic services, meaning a nice apartment. Right? We take those taxes in order to fund that construction, and we still charge you rent based on the cost to maintain and improve the apartment over time. Your rent is based on the cost as opposed to providing for profit for the government, right? Based on what the maximum somebody would be willing to pay for that specific apartment, because everybody needs apartments. So we're going to overbuild apartments. Basically, we're going to make sure that we allocate those apartments to people based on their ability to pay. And will allow a private market to exist for the ultra high end. If somebody wants to pay $100 for a bottle of water, $10,000 a month for an apartment, there still is a super high end luxury market for those people. That also takes them out of the competition for the subsidized housing. That's why there's a private market, to allow that private activity to continue to exist as a safety valve, and to lower the overall demand on the public sphere. The ultimate dumb guy tell is using a hypothetical respond to a real world example that you were just given. Basically, Atrioc, Vienna is rated the most livable city in the world. This is their housing market. It results in cheap rent for the vast majority of people. They have a good social mix. This is the result. Atrioc is, well, their population used to be higher. 100 years ago, as if that means the housing just stayed for 100 years like that. Actually, Pittsburgh's population has dropped by 50%, but the rent is still up. How's that work? And Vienna's population has grown by 25% since 1980.
The real way to fix it is to get more water. The only way is to have more people selling water that they're driving the price down. So when you cap the rents like that, you end up in a situation like your friends talk about where the real way to get it is you have to know somebody.
Yeah.
It ends up with these weird back channel.
First of all, that's not true. That's not true. He's lying. He's fucking lying. Of course he's lying.
Maybe somebody from Austria or Vienna can chip in and clarify here. But the way it was explained to me is that the wait they're talking about avoiding is specific. They were talking about the wait time for private housing, finding private housing the normal way. They also said it can take a while. The way it broke down is with normal public housing, which sounds like it doesn't have the same restrictions that you were talking about. The public seems to be available to any EU citizen or refugee. Like,
but after 2 years, right?
Public. Sorry, the purely public housing is any EU citizen can apply to live in it, right?
Okay.
But the semi-public housing has a Vienna residency requirement to it. So there's a distinction between those two things. They broke down the
they don't know what they're talking about. It's
public.
such a ridiculous level. It's blowing my mind. I'm actually going to have an aneurysm. Because they have, the semi-public housing allows you to form a co-op with a group of people, and then you put money in, and then the government gives you subsidized loans so you can build the apartment that you want to build. And there's something called a procreation fee, which is the fee that it's basically the down payment on your semi-private home. And the reason why it's called semi-private or semi-public is because it is a private residence, yours, but it's being subsidized by the government to form a co-op, basically, where it'll be a limited profit, no equity housing facility. So you own it, you design it, you pick it, you build it, but you're using government subsidies in order to get that housing. And in exchange for getting those government subsidies, you have to ensure that the rent remains low. Does that make sense? Watching other people, watching Americans try to talk about policy isn't dumb as fuck.
Option is you basically apply for a ticket. It sounds like something you apply for way in advance if you're a Vienna resident. And then after, eventually your ticket comes up in the queue, and then you're fed options, up to 3 options of flats that you could move into. And then if you veto 3 times in a row, you reset your position to the back of the queue, or you reset your position back a year.
Yeah.
And that was an example of how the semi-public stuff broke down. So it seems like there's different wait times and different systems.
But there's also a system where you can exchange with somebody else. These are to get extremely subsidized flats. You get 3 choices. And then you could subsidize. So that's what the subsidy is. So you're getting a $600 a month rent in Vienna. I legitimately, I don't know what else to say. This is shockingly stupid.
For how to fight through these things. I think another piece of a context here is when you're talking about knowing somebody to get past the system. He talked about the broader problem of Austrian bureaucracy in general. Getting things done in Austria in general is a miserable experience.
Yeah, I got that.
Getting your marriage acknowledged, for instance. He was talking about how his sister just got married, and she's getting married to someone not from Austria, and they don't even live in Austria right now, but they want their marriage to be recognized by the Austrian government. A huge pain in the ass. It's a very complicated process for basic.
This is literally morons who have never worked a real job in their life talking. This is actually what we're watching right now. Do you know how much paperwork? I wish I really want to talk. I really want to talk, but I'm going to keep my own life private because I don't feel like I don't need to make the point. But let me just say, do you know what it's like to get your marriage acknowledged by the American government? We have a process called the green card. Y'all know about it. It takes years. You have to hire an attorney. You have to fill in a lot of paperwork. You have to go into interviews. You have to show how much money you make. You have to pledge that they're never going to get on welfare. That's what acknowledged by the government means. And what he's talking about is that you have to get your marriage certificate translated in German. And if you want to have residence in Austria, then you have to go through the Austrian residency requirements. Like you have to speak German at a certain level and things like that. That's how you get what they call the red and white card. So that's the Austrian green card, which then gives you status in all of Europe. Once you get the Austrian red and white card, you can live any European Union country as a permanent resident. Is this a pain in the ass? Yes. Is it true in every country that has ever existed? Yes. That you have to get something notarized and translated for the Austrian government. Oh my God, it's so much work, guys.
Basically no reason. And I saw a lot of complaints about that in general from just strangers online, like Austrian bureaucracy specifically. I think what you're saying...
Everybody complains about bureaucracy. What the fuck are we talking about here? This has nothing to do with housing.
Is like, I think what you're saying broadly, I kind of agree with. Like I think building is important.
Yeah.
And if they weren't building more public housing units along the way, then
don't know what to say. At this level of like child brain, like podcaster brain, I don't know what else to say. The argument against the Austrian model, again, most livable city in the world, lowest rent of any major city, fastest growing city in the German speaking world, population has gone up 25% since 1980, is that to get the highly subsidized apartments, you have to wait some time. By the way, you qualify if you live for 2 years in Austria, or if you've been in Austria as a child and you turned 18, you'll be able to get your own highly subsidized apartment at 18 years old.
Makes sense. They're building a supply of public housing that is competitive with the private market over time. Places are available to get into or apply to. That's something that does affect the market regardless.
No, it does. More housing is the biggest solution to the problem.
Yeah.
I just think there's a lot of negative a lot of annoyances that crop up when it's done this way that are still better than not building at all.
I actually think
the negative externalities of having cheap housing that's high quality. Okay, let's get an example of what does that look like? What does Vienna's social housing look like? He said it was shit.
Well, after
Wait, what the fuck? What the fuck? This isn't the housing.
Here in Vienna, 2/3 of its citizens live in subsidized social housing. But in the UK, less than 1 in 10 live in a council house. And not only that, the quality and style is simply out of this world. So is this what you think of when you think of council housing? This is Alt Erla, a social housing estate on the outskirts of Vienna. It may look like tough, brutalist architecture, but actually, it's humane, caring design of the highest order. What happens in and around these pioneering buildings is nothing short of breathtaking.
Oh, wow. Look at that. They've even got an indoor swimming pool as well.
They have nurseries, schools, and tennis courts all conveniently on site. I can't quite believe this.
This is about long-term thinking, allowing people to put down roots, giving them stability. I mean, just imagine if I proposed a high-density council housing estate, loads of swimming pools, indoor and outdoor, clubs, play spaces. I'd be left out of town because everybody would say you couldn't do that. Or worse still, they'd say that the state couldn't afford. Well, what price are we going to put on people's lives, the built environment, and the way that we live in our country?
All right, chat. That's called Alt Erla. Let's check out the rent. 1-bedroom apartment, Alt Erla, 635 euros a month. Oh, 771 for a 2-bedroom. I was told it was dog shit. I was told it was shit.
With 10,000 residents, Alt Erla has the highest density living in Vienna. But you'd never guess that from the peaceful atmosphere.
Monica.
Hi.
Hi. So
The square meters, fuck, I just closed it. It was 63 square meters. Each square meter is basically just under, it's like 700 square foot apartment. That's a little bit small for a 2-bedroom. That's that apartment in LA would be probably like 3,200, and the parking space that you'd have to rent for the LA apartment would be, you know, $250 a month.
Nice to see you.
Monica pays the equivalent of £600 a month rent for her flat. Back in Harlow, temporary accommodation can give you a quarter of the size for almost the same rent.
Does the open plan work for you?
Absolutely.
So you've got workspace,
Workspace.
couple of computers. I mean, that's proper office, that. Look at that. It's really good.
For my studies.
Yeah, and then you've got
Good.
decent seating area, nice little dining area. No matter where you are, you get the view as well,
Exactly.
which is fabulous.
And with the Viennese having such secure tenancies, there's little temptation to buy. So Monica has no stress of being moved on.
Why didn't the U.S. crush the Austrian left like they did in Italy and Greece? Because Vienna was considered to be neutral territory after World War II. The United States agreed, and the USSR agreed to not interfere with Vienna's internal politics and to make Vienna a neutral territory. So the Austrians, and there's like basically everyone agrees not to spy on the Austrians. That's the answer. There's no CIA and there's no KGB in Vienna. I mean, there were, but Vienna was traditionally considered to be officially neutral territory. So that's why no intervention was allowed.
Which is handy, as her dad Heinz lives in the block next door.
How long have you lived here?
40 years.
40 years?
40 years.
Amazing.
Yes.
Why is this place so special?
Because we have everything here. Everything we need.
15 physicians, doctors. We have all the shops.
Groceries, drugstores.
For schools.
For schools.
And you
We
have your own
everything.
TV channel?
Yes.
Is that right?
So if there's any pottery classes tonight, we send it and we inform the people, okay, tonight is pottery class.
That's so cool. It feels to me like it's an amazing hotel.
A 5-star hotel. The swimming pool is always cleaned. It's always ready to use. The sauna is always ready to use.
I would live here in a second, in a heartbeat. In Britain, we have a kind of negative stigma around council housing, government housing. Do you have that here?
What is the difference if I own this flat or if I rent this flat? Tell it to me. What is the difference? Why should I buy this flat?
The difference in the UK is that people don't feel stable. They feel like they could get moved on and moved on and moved on by landlords. Do you feel like you have stability here, renting?
Absolutely.
It's the political system. If they disturb this kind of stability, they wouldn't be the leader of this country anymore. That's the difference.
Just like us, Vienna started building social housing 100 years ago. But unlike the UK, it never stopped. Austria has a higher rate of tax than the UK, but its social care is one of the best in the world. The city builds 7,000 social apartments each year, more than the whole of England, which has a population 30 times the size.
I mean, it's just, now obviously if we want to implement this model, we're going to have to do a massive housing construction program where we build tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of units across all of America's major cities. And we're going to have to deal with landlord class seeing their asset values go down. Atrioc is going to have to lose some money because he's probably invested in a lot of real estate. Oh, well, so sad. Anyway, goddamn, that was embarrassing. What a fucking loser he is. What a propagandist. What an incurious propagandist he is. Every single point. Is there a single point that I did not debunk? Did I leave anything? I want to be sure that I didn't leave anything. All right, Atrioc's predictions for 2025.
Let me just try to illustrate this for you, what I'm talking about. This red line illustrates what I think might happen to the world, and that is down. This green line indicates what I think is going to happen to the quality of the Atrioc broadcast. Do you see that? Let me just try to illustrate this for you, what I'm talking about.
Wow, man. Thanks for the prediction, bro.
2025 is going to be the year of Donald Trump. This man is going to be the most important figure by far in the year 2025. Every decision he makes is going to have global implications.
Guys, the president of the United States of America is going to be important. Give this man $1 million.
The entire global economy is waiting to see what Trump 2.0 will do. 2025?
Whoa! The economy is waiting to see what Trump is going to do, and the president's going to be important. What will we do without these incredible predictions? That's it? Clanker memes are hilarious.
Oh, this.
Since I took office, 100% of all net job creation has...
We don't have net job creation! That's the point! The unemployment rate is rising every month! It just hit a high for the year! Every month it's like, hey, we got 40,000 new jobs, and then the next month they revise it down and go, actually it was negative 80K that month. So there's no net job creation! So what are we talking about? 100% of the new net jobs? There is no new net jobs! I'm losing my mind!
Okay, I didn't mean to click this. I wanted to see the Clanker meme. I don't know why we got that.
This is so funny, dude. I saw this. Look, bro, the teleoperated Optimus robot. He takes off the headset and then it just falls. This is like a god tier reaction meme. Like whenever you see something really stupid on Twitter, I just want to post this. Get me out of the simulation. Oh, this is so funny, dude. I saw this. Look, bro, the teleoperated
I need to make clips like this. I need to make, this has 21,000 likes for some reason. I don't know how to make slop. I need to study Atrioc slop because apparently making some shit that's really broad for the dumbest people on the planet is a way of getting some success. And maybe I should learn that lesson instead of just dogging it and go like, well, I guess he knows how the algorithm works.
Can you hear Wilders once appeared at a Twinks for Trump rally in Ohio? I have to fact check this. You understand that? No way. But is it real?
What the fuck? I'm clicking things and they're giving me random different ones. I clicked Economics 101 and it showed me some completely
inflation
different
using only a smoldering look to camera? Holy, just say that in the first place. Can you explain inflation using only a smoldering look to camera?
Imagine being parasocial with Atrioc. Woo-wee. I just did an entire Atrioc stream. Chat, if you enjoyed the fact that I don't like liberals and I'm not going to sugarcoat the fact that they're dog shit and worthless, please consider supporting this stream by subscribing at tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 sub. If you have Amazon Prime, you can attach that to your Twitch account. You get 1 free sub a month. That's your Twitch Prime sub. I've been waiting for the Atrioc moment. I was waiting for the moment that Hassan said Atrioc sucks in order for me to launch. Because I can't do stuff too early because then everyone just hates me and goes, oh, Mike's vibes are terrible. But once Hassan's like, oh, that was bad, I can finally tell the truth about some liberal. So every time there's a liberal content creator, I have to wait until I get the signal that they're stupid before we can finally go for it. Hassan was half defending Atrioc yesterday. Oh, I'm sure he'll defend him forever. We'll have to wait until Atrioc says that AOC is economically illiterate or whatever the fuck he's gonna say next year before Hassan finally has it. When he's promoting Gavin Newsom 24/7 on his podcast. So, prediction for 2026. Atrioc calls AOC economically illiterate. Just like he's gonna do Destiny of 2019. He's gonna be quoting Destiny from 2019. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez will deliver opening remarks and introduce Zohran Mamdani at his inauguration ceremony on City Hall on January 1st. Senator Bernie Sanders will administer Mamdani's oath of office. I mean, that's expected. Guys, did you know that zoning is why LA has this massive apartment building that's 90% constructed and just sitting there in downtown LA? It's the zoning, guys. The zoning is what's causing this. Oh, wait, I'm hearing it's zoned for super density. Oh, and they're not fixing it. It's just sitting there abandoned. I guess the zoning isn't it. Ugh. All right. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Emma Vigeland was based on CNN.
Period. And this will go down as one of the worst crimes in the history of humanity that our government, the Biden administration, and the Trump administration are complicit in.
Does it go down? We have to debate this.
Yeah, we don't have time.
We don't have time for the anti-Israel propaganda. We don't have time for the anti-Israel propaganda.
We don't have time to debate it.
Could you say Hamas was wrong at any point during this conversation?
Fine.
Listen, we know that there's plenty of disagreement on that issue.
I never said that.
We let it on spool for 2 minutes, but sure. I mean, honestly.
Okay, have a quick word.
I don't understand. Israel's our ally. Not a single word in your speech for the atrocities
Shouldn't be.
that were committed on October the 7th.
We should
not
cut
a single
off
word,
arms tomorrow.
Not a single word for the idea that Israel has every right to defend itself. Not a single word for the fact that Hamas right now is killing people inside of God, their own people. You
What do
seem
you
to lay
say
it all at the feet of Israel,
Israeli
a democratic
human rights
ally
group.
in your own
Excuse me.
country, and
Is-
you have
excuse
no
me.
negative
Excuse
word
me.
for the
Excuse me.
terrorists who raped
All right,
and
all right,
murdered
all right.
and kidnapped.
Excuse me.
Zero.
B'Tselem,
None.
Israeli human rights group, says
None.
they're
And
committing
you still
genocide.
don't. You still don't.
We gotta go. Rita Ninen, thank you very much.
And I want you to understand, this is why people don't watch CNN anymore, because people like Emma Vigeland get shouted over. A guy going, I can't believe you're speaking of our ally. We only gave them $350 billion. And that doesn't include the expenses of running the aircraft carriers and the battle fleets and bombing Yemen and invading Iraq, because we did that for fucking Israel. And Netanyahu was here in America saying we should invade Iraq. Now he wants us to fight a war in Iran. We spent $6 trillion on the war on terror. Do you feel like you got $6 trillion of value?
A world-class military needs a blue water navy. China's second aircraft carrier, the Shandong, is conducting its first exercise in the Western Pacific. 29-year-old Li Yunhan is the OOD, Officer of the Deck. She is the Shandong's first female OOD. The OOD's responsibility is to ensure the safe navigation and operation of the carrier, whether it is at sea or anchored. Li Yunhan came to the Shandong in 2017 when it was launched from the dry dock. Like many others, her aspiration is to serve aboard this large warship and see the vast world. In 2018, Xi Jinping called for further modernization efforts and underlined the goal of transforming the Navy into a world-class force.
Chat, where's the anarchist aircraft carrier? We need the anarchist aircraft carrier.
A large number of advanced warships have been commissioned. The Chinese Navy is building a comprehensive force, shifting from coastal defense to greater responsibilities in open waters.
Because China is now top trading partner of 130 countries. So China has its ships, its goods, its people moving all over the world. When you reach a certain level of economic powers, you have to consider the possibility that this might be threatened. It has to be protected.
一步走向远海，以近海防御，那就是空话。
Being able to construct carriers does not automatically grant China the status of a naval power. The PLA Navy is intensifying training in open waters. During its Western Pacific mission, the Shandong Carrier Group conducted various combat scenarios, including aircraft takeoff and landing operations. Inspired by the Navy's Going Blue strategy, Zhong Ziqian transitioned from a land-based fighter pilot to a carrier-based one in 2016. His experience reflects the transformation of the PLA Navy.
战友们叫我飞行狂人，在战斗部队时，我就立志要当一名舰载战斗机飞行员，无畏飞向海天。
在远海大洋的时候，这个海浪啊、涌流啊，会造成我们的这个船不断的运动，可能这个甲板它就一下子就抬高好几米，或者是一下子下沉好几米，对于我们这个着舰影响是比较大的。在夜晚的远海大洋，在太平洋深处，你就是在一片黑洞中飞行。如果你能看到母舰，也只是点点的这种灯光而已。
The Shandong Carrier Group had numerous encounters with foreign warships and planes attempting close-up reconnaissance.
都被他们认为是对他们海洋霸权的冒犯。只要你
So he's talking about how the United States considers any navy that sails outside of the first island chain to be a slap in the face of America.
出大量他就跟踪啊，就这个监视，而且经常在那进行挑衅，阻止中国走向远海，走向远洋。
One man who has a unique insight into the importance of going into open waters is Xu Ying. The first-generation carrier pilot went on to become an executive officer of the Shandong in 2021. He played a key role in commanding pilot training during the Shandong's Western Pacific mission.
这个是我们在进行舰载机出动回收的模拟的这个推演。航空保障的重点就是保障舰载机的起飞和着舰，怎么样提高航空保障能力？我具备快速出动和快速回收的保障能力，这是我要努力的目标。
Xu Ying stressed that carrier pilots encounter significantly different conditions when operating in open waters, and that's why they need to train there.
我们在渤海里面永远练不出太平洋的能力。
报人官，有商船呼叫我舰。
山东舰你好，在太平洋上能遇到祖国的航母在此训练，感到非常自豪，祝贺你们取得圆满成功。船长，over。
This navigation map of the guided missile destroyer Changchun records its journey since its entry in service in 2013. China is expanding its maritime presence in line with other major economic powers. The PLA Navy conducts joint maritime exercises and training with other navies.
一代飞行员有一代飞行员的使命，我们赶上了一个好时代。
我们每个人都在书写历史。
建设一流海军，离不开一支强大的航母编队，它是捍卫我们国家主权、安全、发展利益的战略平台。未来的中国海军会拥有更多的航母编队，会驶向更遥远的深海大洋。
For the men and women committed to protecting their country, the goal of a world-class Navy is what drives them to aspire higher.
So this year, the Chinese Navy has commissioned an aircraft carrier, a light carrier, a cruiser, and it looks like 7 destroyers and 6 frigates. And looks like 2 submarines.
Hello, everyone.
Wow. And the reason why I bring this up is because there has been...
Well, China is holding...
America has said they're going to sell a whole bunch of weapons to Taiwan. And in response, China has begun military drills around the Taiwanese island right now.
A second day of military drills around Taiwan as tensions between Taipei and Beijing escalate. China launched missiles into the Taiwan Strait near Pingtan Island, the closest Chinese island to Taiwan. That comes alongside Chinese naval drills at sea in areas surrounding Taiwan, demonstrating their ability to blockade the island. Meanwhile, Taiwan has responded by scrambling fighter jets from a base at Hsinchu on the western coast. The roots of this standoff trace back to the Chinese Civil War in 1949, when the defeated nationalist government fled to Taiwan and the People's Republic of China was formed on the mainland. Now, this dispute gained global weight in 1971 when the UN recognized Beijing as China's representative. Taiwan is...
So from 1949 to 1971, the United Nations pretended like the Chinese government did not exist. And they said that Taiwan spoke for all of China.
Not a member state. The island of Taiwan has governed itself for decades, but Beijing views it as a part of China and insists that reunification is inevitable. Tension over Taiwan has escalated since Chinese President Xi Jinping took office, with Beijing holding 6 major drills since 2022. Well, Zain Besravi is standing by at an airbase in Taiwan, but first let's go over to Katrina Yu, who's monitoring the situation from Beijing. And so, Katrina, look, we are now into day 2 of these drills, and China seems to be telegraphing in some ways how it would take back Taiwan by force. So what are we learning about their tactics?
That's right. Well, China has dispatched its army, its navy, its air force, and its rocket force, and it sent them essentially to encircle Taiwan. We know from a map released by the People's Liberation Army that they are approaching the island from 5 different directions. These blocks, the area of which this drill is covering, it seems to be larger than ever before, and the focus seems to be blocking major ports in Taiwan and isolating the island. So practicing cutting off Taiwan potentially from the rest of the world. We also know that the PLA says today that they will be testing long-range missiles. So certainly this drill involves practicing both defensive and offensive capacities of the People's Liberation Army and targeting not only troops coming from Taiwan, but potentially troops coming from other directions, troops being sent from foreign forces. And certainly for the first time in history, Beijing has admitted that these drills are also directed towards any country that may be considering stopping Beijing from taking back control of Taiwan.
So, Katrina, look, the Taiwanese military says that 90 out of 130 military planes that are taking part in these drills cross the median line between China and Taiwan. What is Beijing saying about that?
It certainly seems that Beijing is emboldened more than ever before this time round. It hasn't commented about this particular drill and those planes, as you mentioned, crossing the median line. But in the past, China's response has been very simple. They don't believe a median line between Taiwan and China exists. And that is the very point. China believes that Taiwan is simply another Chinese province, rogue sovereign territory that will be taken back if necessary by force. And really the whole point of these drills is to send a very clear message to the government of Lai Ching-te, the democratically elected president in Taiwan, that pushing for independence or even declaring independence is crossing a red line, and that red line for Beijing is the belief that there is only one China.
All right, so that is the view from Beijing. Zain Basravi in Taiwan, now over to you. So you've been on the coast, now you're at the Hsinchu Air Base. What are you seeing from your vantage point?
Well, here at the Hsinchu Air Base, journalists were being pushed away earlier this morning. We've just come back and we are here. We are able to film. Let me give you a sense of exactly where we are. Now, this is the main air base in this part of Taiwan, in the north of Taiwan. It is the main air base, and here you see barbed wire around an airfield, and there in the distance, just under open canopies, under an open hangar, we do see parked jets, but that's just what you can see from the street. This base is home to Taiwan's fleet of F-16.
By the way, chap, did you know that 80% of the Abrams tanks that have been sent to Ukraine have been knocked out? You guys remember when the Abrams tanks and the European tanks going to Ukraine was going to like end the war?
Which numbers about 140. That number is expected to go up in coming years. Taiwan has pledged to take that number up to 200 F-16s. The promise to purchase more to continue to bolster its defense.
In just 2 minutes in the Kursk region, this Ukrainian Abrams tank took 6 direct hits from FPV drones. 2 more missed, and 1 got tangled in a makeshift net that Ukrainian tankers had installed themselves.
Remember when they used to call those cope cages, chat? When the Russian tanks did that? This is what American Abrams tank looks like.
That Ukrainian tankers had installed themselves. Safe to say the engineers who designed the Abrams probably never imagined it would end up in a situation like this, especially since these exact drones were far from
by China. You know, the prelude was an estimated $11 billion deal for military hardware struck with the U.S. The promise of reports of upwards of $40 billion more being spent by Taiwan in coming years. It really is an indication, these military exercises by China, the continued ratcheting up of military spending by Taiwan, both sides in this conflict at the moment seem to be edging more towards
okay, this is just propaganda. These are not prisons. They're just fat camps. Voluntary fat camps people enroll in to lose weight. It's just like enrolling, it's like doing Biggest Loser or something. Obese individuals are shedding the pounds by enrolling in fat prisons, closed camps that provide rapid weight loss through intense exercise routines, mandatory weigh-ins, and rules that make it difficult to leave. She signed herself up and give an inside peek at really what goes on. I mean, like, this is, you want to do it? Oh my God, I can't believe they're having really nice prawns for dinner. Did you know in China, people voluntarily stand up for fat camps?
Open conflict than any kind of dialogue. And the worry is anytime there is this kind of escalation, even though maneuvers and exercises are relatively routine, but when they scale up like this, when there's this much rhetoric from Taipei, from Beijing, the worry is that the threshold for open conflict continues to fall lower and lower. And that really is the worry for people here in Taiwan at the moment.
So you told us earlier that Taiwanese people are used to these kind of military drills, but obviously this one seems to be on another level. Have there been any disruptions caused by these drills, and is there genuine concern among people there?
Well, certainly this is directly affecting the daily life of fishermen, for instance. We were at the harbor earlier. All the boats were in the port. They weren't out on the waters. They were told, instructed, fishermen across Taiwan have been instructed to keep their boats in the harbor, to stay out of the waters for their own safety for the duration of these drills. Air and naval traffic, international air traffic was threatened, Taiwan said. International routes were under threat of some kind of disruption that was announced ahead of these drills. But what we heard from the airport official this morning who spoke to us said that it is business as usual at the moment and things are carrying on. It's certainly creating political tension. Critics of the president saying that ratcheting up rhetoric with Beijing is perhaps not the way forward to create any sort of stable long-term solution to the conflict. But what we do have, the latest reaction from Taiwan, the Minister of National Defense said today that China's provocative actions threaten regional stability and civilian traffic. Following the president's guidance, the Taiwanese armed forces will respond calmly and safeguard our nation's security and democracy. So Taiwanese government urging calm, but everybody here is certainly on high alert. The military is on high alert and will remain so for the duration of these exercises. They are expected to fold up today, but at the same time, China has left it open-ended. They may carry on in coming days.
All right, we will be keeping a close eye. That's Zain Basravi watching these major Chinese military drills right on Taiwan's front doorstep. Zain, thank you.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news, expert insight. Like, share, stay ahead.
All right, chat. I'm going to call it there. I'm concerned about your insufficient China glaze today. We'll have to do China glaze tomorrow. I've got an article. We'll talk about it tomorrow because we're out of time. But cheap solar is transforming lives and economies across Africa. Don't they know this is neocolonialism? Don't they know it's neocolonialism? Oh yeah, chat, I published an Atrioc video, by the way, today. We need to talk about Atrioc. Atrioc. It is premiering in 5 minutes. The dangers of Atrioc liberalism. We need to, although I don't think this is a very good photo of me, it's fine. We need to get some good photos of me for the channel. Jesus Christ. Anyway, welcome on in, chat. Please do spam the Atrioc video. Premiering right now. We will be talking about this tomorrow. Don't they know that this is neocolonialism? Doesn't the dentist office, who now has a battery backup solar panel, and so he's able to do it without losing power, doesn't he understand that he's really being neo-colonialized by buying cheap Chinese solar panels? Ismet Booley, a dentist in Cape Town, has a serious problem. A few years ago, patients showed up for appointments only to find the power had gone out. South Africans like Dr. Booley have found a remedy for power cuts that have plagued people in the developing world for years. Thanks to swiftly falling prices of Chinese-made solar panels and batteries, they now draw their power from the sun. But what of the cost? What of the cost? Actually, funnily enough, chat, I made this exact point to Destiny when we debated about TPP. Anyway, I'll see you all very soon. Mike, your video is set to drop at 2:55 a.m. No, it's not. All right, mods, make sure you subscribe. We are going to premiere right now. Thank you guys, gals, not binary pals. For those of you that are still around, I'm gonna send the raid over to Vio. Oh, Vio's not live. Okay, fuck it. No Vio live. Raid into this. Raid into this video. All right, everybody. I'll see you soon. Stay safe. Solidarity forever, my friends. And don't worry, we're going to be making more comments until I debate Atrioc. All right, everybody, stay safe. See you later. Solidarity forever. And socialism will win. Don't forget all my links. And I'll see you soon. Peace.